Hello there, I'm Peach. I'm the author of Let That Sink In, and this is my first fanfic. Before all this, I didn't write fanfiction, and I didn't read it either. That is to say, this is a new experience for me. I didn't think to structure or outline the story at all. I didn't even do research beforehand, and just kind of used impressions of events and characters that I had in my mind. I'd played Deltarune and Undertale a couple times when they first came out, searching for new dialogue, but that's as far as I had gone. I didn't really have any friends that wanted to talk about these games with me, and before all this, I'd never been in a Deltarune or Undertale fandom. And honestly, it's scary. I was completely unaware of just how much an impact the fandom-generated content had on how people viewed the source material. I was kept out of the loop entirely, which might make my perspective a little bit jarring and maybe even boring if the crazy ideas that I came up with happened to be in line with pre-established fanon. I honestly have no idea. I never would have delved into the fandom space if it wasn't for my excitement after playing Deltarune Chapter 2, and desperately wanting to talk about it with someone. So if I couldn't talk with someone about it, the next best thing would be to watch someone else talk about it. So I went on YouTube and allowed myself to watch a couple videos, which I was absolutely shocked at how in-depth and thorough everyone's scrutiny was. Like, magnifying glasses capturing every insignificant detail. It was beyond my comprehension. To be perfectly honest, I was baffled and a little bit put off by it. Both the fans and creators were hardcore, and I'd already missed way too much to ever hope to catch up. I decided that the Deltarune fandom just wasn't my speed and vowed to never make that mistake again. But actually, there were a couple creators that stood out in my mind and made me think. It didn't hurt that they both did non-Undertale related streams, and both had really good voices. And that's how we got here. I became a regular of funny voice man Andrew Cunningham streams, and that's where the initial spark for my Azzypants kick came in. It was during one of his Y2K/Yik/Yeek streams. Usually I put streams on in the background while I go about daily tasks, but fate had it to where I was mostly present, and I could feel the full effects of the mind-melting dullness of Yeek. And this wasn't even the first time that I'd watched somebody play Yeek, so I already knew what I was in for, and my brain was starving for any kind of stimulation, especially as we neared the monotonous ending of the game. It was akin to watching one of those really bad movies. It was grueling and torturous, but it was a shared experience, and it became a type of enjoyment. And in the midst of all this came an oasis, a funny little fanfic about Azrael and Pizza Pants that involved a lot of licking. It made me think, and then I couldn't get that thought out of my mind. I love how complex the character Azrael is, or at least what I could remember of him. In Undertale, he was such a little trauma baby with a heart of gold. But in Deltarune, he was hinted at having a bit of a cheeky personality, a bit on the horndog side, not gonna lie. We had the whole How to Draw Dragons fiasco, how it was 7 years late, the whole bratty and catty interactions of them pretty much fighting over him, trying to get his first kiss, taking him to the school dance and being inappropriate. Most importantly, we had the school library search history that kind of hinted that it was on the more fetish side. Like, come on man, that's a school library, what are you doing? And then on the opposite end, we've got Burger Pants, who is this funny little dude who wears his heart on his sleeve. He's an absolute jaded sleazebag who is innocent and gullible and easily tricked. He desires to do great things, but he has a bad reputation, and he desperately wants to fit in, but he absolutely cannot. He's got that same people-pleasing attitude, and those stars in his eyes just like Azrael, but they both go in opposite directions in expressing it. And of course, Azrael's just a little bit more successful at it. So we have those two characters, but the most important thing is that in Deltarune, Burger Pants is Azriel's friend. If you think back to Undertale, one of Flowey's biggest problems, even as a kid, was loneliness. He couldn't get rid of the loneliness that he felt. That's kind of what pushed him into being that edgelord, emo boy, incel that he became. Flowey initially wanted to make everyone's life happy, but not having a soul, he couldn't get any happiness himself from it. He couldn't make any connections with the people he was interacting with. He delved into his worst intrusive thoughts and began to torture everyone he loved, thinking that it might make him feel something. But even that didn't work. He was initially curious with Frisk because they were something new and they were something different that they could play with, but as we go through the game, Flowey realizes that they have the same determination powers that allow them to go back in time. They are more than just a toy to play with, they are a real person. They're not just a character. Since they are real, they are possibly someone who can understand him, possibly even relate to his struggles. What I got from Flowey's character was that he was desperate for true companionship. It didn't have to be Frisk. It was Kata before that, even Azriel admits it. He was just projecting that connection with them. So what would happen if Flowey grew up in the Deltarune world with a best friend companion, and of course that companion is Burger Pants? Fascinating stuff. So thinking about each character and their combination really set a fire under my butt. I really liked this idea the more that I thought about it. It did seem like Azriel's personality was influenced by Burger Pants and Deltarune. So they already have a connection. What's the point of attraction? For me personally, I absolutely love Burger Pants' character, and even though he's so jaded, nothing seems to faze him. But if we're gonna be real about it, this is Azriel we're talking about. It is definitely a physical attraction. I mean, look at this face. Look at this face. And then I thought, oh, faces. Flowey can choose his face. He chooses what form he appears in. We see what he chooses to look like when he takes up an Azriel form, but this is the form that he is most comfortable with. It's a very cartoony face, but it has this huge expressive smile. And the thing about it is, these are more human characteristics. No horns or fangs or anything like that, and that kind of tracks, since one of the most traumatic things in his life had to do with a human. Not necessarily liking humans, he wants to look human. Flat face, flat teeth. And just who in Hometown fits the bill of that description? Oh, look at that beautiful Hollywood smile. That flat-ass face. Holy shit, I've got it. This ship has wings. So I decided to give it a try. I wasn't exactly sure how to start writing, so I started with looking over their dialogue. And by that I mean, I still had my saves from both Undertale and Deltarune on Steam. I loaded those save files, and whatever I had on the save file at the time, that's what I used. I didn't even think to look that kind of thing up online. So I used these very small snippets of their dialogue as my inspiration for their speech patterns. The ending of Undertale Azriel spoke very plainly, in short, choppy, concise sentences. He bared a lot of guilt. He has the biggest burden in the game, but also the kindest heart. And Burger Pants, I had both a little bit of Undertale and a little bit of Deltarune. He's sleazy, playful, charismatic, long-winded. He loves to use phrases and idioms. I would say sports idioms in particular were his biggest quirk. Again, I've only played these games a couple times. I'm not claiming that this is accurate to the canon here. These are just how I read the events and the characters of this game. I apologize if any of this seems way off base. and it's extremely aggravating to keep hearing me say these inaccurate things. I bring this up because the way I view the games and the characters is accurate to let that sink in. I built the foundations on what I understood. It's not at all comparable, but it is my own. But what about the story? One of the only fanfics that I really knew about, because I caught a little bit of stream, was Umris. So of course I could use that as a baseline. So let's have this huge young adult drama about the dread of growing up and becoming an adult, but then it ends with Azriel wanting Burger Pants' perfect Hollywood teeth to bite him after finally Burger Pants concedes. It's revealed that they were veneers the whole time, and they pop off. Hilarious. Absolutely amazing. I definitely have to write this. And that's when I started with the introduction. It was literally me figuring out who Burger Pants is, and what kind of character he's like. Except like with Umris, you gotta exaggerate. In Deltarune, Berdly was a little bit nerdy, he's interested in one specific girl, and he's just a tiny bit world-weary. In Umris, he became the smarmiest asshole on the planet, he was obsessed with sex, and he was so miserable that he describes every experience he has like it's the end of the world. Perfect. I'll take my little Burger Pants with his stupid idioms and run with them. Almost everything will be wordplay. And he worries so much that he'll be misunderstood by people that he actually makes a fool of himself and winds up making everything so much worse. 100% anxiety all the time. Let's do this. So I channeled my inner scam artist with aspirations to become a star, and that's how we got here. Burger Pants, having bungled a job interview so badly in hometown, goes to the city to find a job. And he doesn't want to blow it, so he gets really nervous and winds up talking about his whole life story. Since, of course, the city isn't like rural hometown, and the person that he's talking to is a complete stranger, they wouldn't immediately understand why he's called Pizza Pants. So he goes to this interview acting like it is the world's worst speed date. He doesn't give the interviewer a single chance to speak. As someone who's been on the other side of the chair, interviewing these young nervous souls who are desperate to be exploited at their first job, for meager slave wages of course, I could easily draw from my own experience the worst things that people tend to blurt out in these situations. So if you think this interview is absolutely ridiculous, there is a little bit of truth in it. So in the process of writing this introduction, I enjoyed this depiction of Burger Pants so much that I couldn't choose between the comedy angle and the tragedy angle. So I made a distinction in my head. Burger Pants' story was going to be the comedy, and Azriel's was going to be the tragedy. In just a couple moments, we'll see Burger Pants mentions star-crossed lovers early on to set the mood. He was quoting Shakespeare, but I was writing his fate. Like Romeo and Juliet, Burger Pants was going to go through the trials and tribulations of this romance, brought on by spontaneity, being condemned by those around him, and ultimately dies in the end. Except not on screen, because his story is a comedy. His story ends with him breaking off a tooth, and Azriel laughing at him so hard that Burger Pants tries to break up with him. Of course, in Azriel's mind, Burger Pants is the only loved one he has that cannot hurt him. Even his freaking teeth crumble before they can bite down on him. And this pushes Azriel to finally make the decision on not parting ways with him. Oh, that's right. I should probably mention that this Azriel is also Azrael, the Angel of Death, who had escaped from his world to find refuge in this one at a young age. But time is ticking down, and he needs to go back before some terrible crisis happens to this timeline. Of course, now he can't possibly go back without his childhood friend / fated companion, and the only way he can take Burger Pants with him is to reap his soul. Not to get into too much spoilers, but I set up the whole veneer thing, and ultimately leave it up to the audience what happens in their future. So in the middle of writing this introduction, I had already figured out how I was going to end this story, and I went ahead and immediately penned it down. So I have the introduction, and then I have the ending. Everything else came after. My original intention was to throw out that introduction, because that was supposed to be my warm-up to learning how to write, but I'd built up so much of the world from Burger Pants' dialogue that I couldn't in good conscience throw it out. I went from liking Burger Pants' Undertale to becoming obsessed with this streetwise thespian scumbag that it was too hard to stop. If I hadn't written Burger Pants the way that I did, I would not have written this at all. It really was self-indulgent. Now that we've gone through all the preliminaries, let us jump right in. So when I made this fic, it was pretty much self-indulgent. I didn't know that there were any rules to creating the fanfic. I didn't know there were certain things that I should censor or not censor. I used my best judgment and completely scrubbed out all of the possible drug references that I could, and I grew up in a culture where talking about porn was alright. It's just a fact of life. It's a thing that happened. So yeah, we had hilarious hijinks ensue with dirty magazines all the time, even in kids shows. It's kind of like how we have adult humor in kids shows these days. A lot of euphemisms like playing with yourself, meaning something completely different to a child than it does with an adult. So I've been exposed to that kind of humor ever since I was little, and I never thought anything of it. I never thought that this was a taboo subject that I was not supposed to reach. But then my bubble got popped when I had watched the first Azzypants stream, and not only was everybody mentioning drugs, but it seems like mentioning sexuality was this huge taboo. So already I had this huge strike against me. I'd completely gone against the norm, and I was extremely nervous. I'd submitted it hoping that a couple people would look at it and provide some feedback, because I was laughing so much at this stupid little thing that I created. I was not expecting it to actually be put in the queue for the stream, and that got me very nervous. So much so that I thought about deleting it, but since it was already there and people already saw that it was in the lineup, there was nothing I could do about it. So I just kind of sat there nervously for the rest of the stream, praying that it wasn't read. And that's exactly what happened for the second stream as well. I was pretty much praying that it wasn't the next one up. So I got my wish. It was read last. And I'm so glad that it was, because it was so long. The first 8,000 words barely make it through chapter 2. I kind of wanted Andrew to read to the end of chapter 2, chapter 2 being my absolute favorite chapter. That's the one where I went buck wild and did whatever I wanted to do. Hell, even if we could make it past that introduction, that was the goal here. Make it past that crazy introduction, because at least then people would know it's not just Burger Pants rambling on forever. I actually did put effort into creating a story. So finally, everybody's fic is read, and I am so nervous. I'm like about to have a heart attack. I am just beside myself. I can't keep it contained. I am just melting from embarrassment, and I'm like, oh no. Oh no, this is actually gonna happen. Everybody's going to hate me. And of course I built this on top of a lot of Chinese tropes. This is not the audience who is going to get all of my references. Right off the bat, there was just this miscommunication. There was no way to get my ideas across. And that made me think, oh shit, I have like 30,000 words and I can't even explain what my concept is. That's great. Whenever the fic gets read, chat completely immediately dies, and I'm panicking even worse than usual. So I went from planning on not outing myself as the author and making fun of it to, oh shit, I owe everybody an explanation. This is really bad. Of course, Andrew is such a trooper. Right off the bat, he was able to pull off the most amazing Burger Pants voice. Chef's kiss. Absolutely amazing. Love it.
Name, sex, location? Well, you can give it a try if you like.
So immediately, we have the frame of reference that Burger Pants is going through, the AOL chat room lingo, ASL, age, sex, location, which kind of clues us into the setting and where Burger Pants is coming from. He's not really used to speaking to people face to face. He's more accustomed to speaking to people online. So that's the first thing that comes up in his mind when he has to go to this job interview. He's just sat in this little room with this person and does not know what to do. So he just starts blurting out everything. He's not even waiting for the interviewer to start asking a question. He just begins this ramble. And immediately we see Burger Pants is nervous about disclosing his name to this stranger, because a name is a very personal thing in Undertale and Deltarune. So he kind of stumbles after the first question that he himself set up. So he's already doomed himself to failure. He's already awkward and nervous. So then he decides to disclose his legal given name, but then make sure to emphasize that he detests being called this.
Seriously, Mom, Dad, what kind of stage name is Dudley? Dudley? Dud-like? As in faulty, unsatisfactory, boring.
And we get to see a little bit of his thought process, how his parents cursed him with this horrible name, that it's not a good name for what he intends to do in the future, especially since he sees his name as very symbolic. That's when he starts quoting Shakespeare being the embodiment of a star-crossed lover. For those fortunate enough to not have to slog through Romeo and Juliet in middle school, the concept of a star-crossed lover means someone who is ill-fated in a relationship. But in pop culture, star-crossed lover is a term that's thrown around from a destined couple, not so much an ill-fated couple. So that's what Burger Pants is channeling here. He wants to go off and have these grand adventures and find his fated companion. But he feels that he was given a bad lot in life and is doomed from the start. And that's when he makes the pun about the crossed star lover, crossed meaning angry, and star lover just meaning his fanaticism for actors. He likes to watch movies and learn a lot from actors. He is very interested in acting. That's the path that he chooses for himself in the future. And then, of course, he makes fun of his name. Burgess being one of those names that can be pronounced two ways, Burgess and Burgess sounding like burgers. I did not give too much thought into Dudley. OD being a Garfield character. This is our golden furred pizza cat, and we have a orange furred lasagna cat. There's a dog in Garfield named Odie, and Odie is also a pun for overdose, so given middle and last name, none of it works for Burger Pants, and that's what he's trying to get across here. Yes, this is what it says on my ID, but this is not what I want to be called. And this gets him to go into how he feels that he is trapped, that he is cursed in this life.
I'm literally cursed. Don't roll your eyes, I'm serious here. I'm the kind of person who would take responsibility for my own actions, but I can't even have the pleasure of calling it karma, since I did nothing to deserve such a thing. Or even could.
He doesn't expect this city slicker to understand exactly what he's talking about, so he over-explains and overshares what he means by this. We see him bring out this very antiquated example of chivalry.
If something bad can happen, it'll happen to me, and in a way I can't possibly foresee. Let me give some examples. Say I go to drape my coat over a puddle as a kind gesture for a lovely lady to cross the street. My phone will fall out of my pocket with my browser history open, and my keys would fall into the gutter.
Obviously, this is not something that's happened to him. He's just making this up on the spot. And it's kind of telling that the first thing that he thinks about is his browser history being open. Meaning, we know that he knows that this is something shameful, or at least not socially acceptable, so he immediately just slips that right on out there.
The world's just out to make my life miserable. Yep, me specifically. Not extremely miserable, just enough to inspire me and let me get my mind into character. That's right, it's method acting. Are you impressed? My life was always destined to be a cinematic path.
And even though the interviewer is not saying anything, Burger Pants is getting extremely defensive and trying to recover. So that's why he immediately transitions into talking about how great of an actor he's going to be. And he mentions that he is a method actor. And one of the jokes at the time I remember back when I was a kid is people who are extreme assholes and just want to be jerks, they usually claim that it's method acting. Like, no, they have to get into this character's role and pretend to be that character in order for them to play that character. Which, it's pretty much true. Burger Pants kind of does this. He emulates the actors that he sees on TV, and that's how he learns how to socialize with people. So that's why we have this very awkward interaction with the interviewer. He is doing a monologue right now. Whether he knows it or not, he is doing a monologue, and an interview is not a monologue. An interview is questions and answers. But the interviewer has not gotten a word in edgewise so far, and Burger Pants is just laying out all of his dirty laundry on the table. This is not going so well.
A sighting bonehead bunny from my class was running down the hall chugging some outrageously artificial flavored sports drinks when the locker next door swung open without any warning. He avoided the catastrophe by sidestepping, but obviously it didn't have enough brain power to pay attention to the drink in his hand, which flew all the way over to me somehow, right into my groin. I've been rushing off to class, worried about being late for homeroom, so I barely registered anything at the moment other than the gut-wrenching feeling of being smacked square in the below the belt.
And Burger Pants, he can kind of intuit what the interviewer's thoughts are, which is what I wanted to point out early on. Burger Pants immediately goes into this other monologue about what nickname his friends gave him, and how he doesn't even like the nicknames that people gave him. But of course he can't just say, it used to be Pissy Pants, but I like to be called Pizza Pants now, please call me that. So he decides to explain the whole story in graphic detail, in agonizing detail, in details that even he would know. He is making up this story as he's going along, based on his experiences. So we set it up, he's very young, trying to make it to the classroom, fearing that he's going to be late, so he already got that anxiety from when he was a kid. And then, Azrael opens his locker, Bluey, who is Blue Ears, the nice cream guy, but I couldn't just call him Blue Ears because that would be so awkward to keep saying Blue Ears, Blue Ears, Blue Ears, and Blue Ears sounds like Bluey. I'm sorry for any confusion, but that's pretty much what they would do if Azrael is shortened to Azzy. Blue Ears would be shortened to Bluey. So anyway, Bluey has this drink in his hand, and he trips up trying not to get slammed by this locker, and the drink flies and hits Burger Pants.
In any case, it's not like that knucklehead asked me if I was alright or nothing. No, why you hurt nothing. He just pointed at my way and laughed, getting the attention of the other students around him. Other students started laughing too.
And of course, Burger Pants isn't the kind that would have no reaction to this. He overreacts to this thing that had happened, which is highly amusing. So Azrael kind of decides to egg him on and call him out on that, about how Burger Pants pissed his pants, and we see how this is supposed to be like a shameful thing, trying to see how this kid will react.
Burgess, do you piss your pants? Nuh-uh, your mama pissed my pants last night. Let's not think about how one's mother would piss my pants, okay? I just brought this up to say that I was the one who got in trouble for this. Foul language, the teacher said, and they even made me call my mom and change my clothes.
Burger Pants is completely humiliated. He's caught off guard, he is in pain, he's drenched with this nasty sports drink that he absolutely detests and will detest for the rest of his life. And in the midst of being called out, he does what he thinks that he should do to get someone off his back and retaliates. Burger Pants isn't really the confrontational type, right? He's more a backpedaler who just wants to make peace if peace is an option. So he goes with the Yo Mama joke, which of course his mother plays a big part in his life, and we'll see that way later on. But that's the first thing that he thinks to make. Not even knowing who he's talking to. He does not know the kid that heckled him. He just knows that some kid heckled him. So he is going to get the zing on them and show them what's what. But he ultimately pretty much embarrasses himself even more. In the middle of this, we see the first hint that we are in a job interview, because Burger Pants notices that the same sports drink that he detests is served in this cafe. So instead of being confrontational, Burger Pants backpedals, and it's like,
what a nostalgic drink. Brings back childhood memories.
Not really lying, but trying to smooth things over. That's just the kind of person he is. So little baby Burger Pants is absolutely humiliated by this interaction. He gets caught by the teacher for saying a curse word. His mom had to get involved and bring him a change of clothes. And we see off the bat, Mama doesn't take any crap. I had to come down here. What's wrong with you? Having to get me involved in this. But we see Burger Pants is a little bit empathetic. Even though he believes that he was unjustly called out, he doesn't hold it against Bluey and, quote, the gang. Because again, he is a peacemaker. He realizes that it really didn't have to be him. It was just the kind of thing that kids do, and he holds himself in a higher regard because he looks down on them like they're stupid, they can't help it. This is the only way they have to cope, and I pity them. So then we transition from Pissy Pants to Pizza Pants, and once again, Azriel, having witnessed Burger Pants' reaction, decides to see how else Burger Pants is going to react. He's got a little bit of interest now. And so we have Burger Pants in this monologue, and he's saying piss, and he's saying damn, and he's saying assholes. He's just going ham with all these curse words in the middle of this restaurant, in front of the hiring interviewer. And Burger Pants kind of notices the look on her face and intuits that it's the strong language that she doesn't like, which is exactly what he's talking about in the story, about how the strong language had to be censored.
I'll strike that one up to the cois. Yeah, the cois coised me into getting caught saying the cois word. Is piss even a cois word? It's against the standards of language here. Okay. Pardon me then, it was an integral phrase to my story. You must understand. To summarize, fate had given way again. Karma, 2,000. Pizza Pants, 0.
And he apologizes for this, but he continues to do it anyway, and for the rest of his monologue, he completely forgets to censor his language. And we see previously that Burger Pants said he couldn't call his bad luck karma because he doesn't believe he deserved it, but then later on, he does decide to call it karma, and before he even gets to the Pizza Pants name, he calls himself Pizza Pants, so he's not completely paying attention to what he's saying. He's just blurting things out as they come into his mind. Again, just denoting how nervous he is right now.
Anyway, this kid, he seriously cried with tears pouring out and snot dripping and everything for the whole day about not being pampered by his mommy. Yet I was the bullied one. Seeing that mommy was in the same building, always keeping a protective Hawkeye and a young little greenhouse bud, of course no one dared bully him. In fact, everyone seemed to like him. He could do no wrong, a natural people person, blessed with charisma. I'm not jealous. I just want that for me too. So my friend Az, right? He's the one that tuned up my nickname down a notch, made it more palatable, from Piss Pants to Pizza Pants. How did that go? Right, well some kid in class calls me by that awful nickname in front of the teacher. Azriel, ever absorbing and quick-witted, swooped in and came up with some elaborate story I had to sat at my lunch.
Then he goes on to talk about how Azriel softened that nickname from Pissy Pants to Pizza Pants, and how it's very odd that Burger Pants is the one who kept getting bullied, or at least hassled by jerks. And Azriel, who is just like he was as a kid, meek and mild-mannered and mostly kept to himself, but Azriel's also the kind who would blatantly cry with tears dripping down, wore his heart on his sleeve, and yet Azriel was never bullied. He starts seeing this type of charisma in Azriel, and he gets jealous, and he starts thinking about that, how he wants that for himself. He wants to be this charismatic figure that could get away with everything. But of course he denies it immediately. So immediately we see that him and Azriel became friends over this incident. Azriel's just no longer a classmate and a wimp, but also his best friend.
Please, everyone, open your eyes. This is just another one of the dreamer's lies.
And we can kind of see through Burger Pants' language that he already thinks of the Dreamer family as this messed up kind of trickster sort of family. Like, they're not completely honest with people. And we'll see that throughout the story about this mistrust that Burger Pants has given the Dreamer family.
Come to think of it, did old Azzy come up with that story not to defend me, but to get his friend out of trouble? Water under the bridge. Water under the bridge. Don't think about it. The fact of the matter was that incident let me getting my first real friend.
And now that he said this story, he kind of thinks about it and thinks back on it. How Azriel could have just been defending one of his friends for not getting in trouble saying the curse word, and Burger Pants thought that Azriel was extending an olive branch to him, but he does not want to think about that, so he immediately dismisses it. Which leads him to trying to distract himself from those thoughts by going on about Azriel and how much their friendship means to him. So he's not really telling this for the interviewer's sake, he is trying to distract himself from his own thoughts about how they might not be as connected as he thought that they were.
Az, how would you recount the Pizza Pants story to them and leave me with a shred of dignity, please? Did you ever stop to think there's actually really down-to-earth girls? And I might have had a chance with one of them someday if you hadn't already splashed cold Pizza Pants water on my face? Even if they were your friends, they didn't have to know. I tried to give him my own nickname, Azriel, but in the middle of saying it, I chickened out and called him Azzy.
So we get to see a little bit more of what it was like when Azriel and Burger Pants were teenagers. The more interested in girls that Burger Pants became, the harsher the pushback Azriel was putting on him, teasing him in front of them and making him look like a fool. And we see that this irritates him a little bit. That's why he thinks about calling Azriel names in retaliation. But just when he goes to do this, he takes a look into Azriel's eyes and realizes that he can't possibly do it. He can't possibly put this person down. But a part of him still wishes that he had gone through with it, because now girls were using that cute little nickname that he came up with for Azriel, and it just became another endearing point for Azriel.
I definitely regret it. The name Azzy stuck with everyone in our group. Now Hottie A and Cute Girl B follow him around all day, coaxing Azzy. Blah, I'm sick of it.
Which, later on, Burger Pants becomes the one chirping that.
You never hear any girl chirping Pizza Pants for me.
And not too much later on, Azriel is the one who starts chirping Pizza Pants. Once again, Burger Pants is not like the topic that he has stumbled himself upon. So this kind of leads into Chris, and how defensive Azriel is of Chris, or at least that's how Burger Pants views this. And once again, we kind of see that mistrust. We kind of see that Burger Pants doesn't really have a good relationship with Chris, does not seem to think too fondly of them, so much so that without Azriel's presence, he calls them completely something different.
Can't imply Squid is an ass unless I want a couple of ribs cracked. Now I gotta call someone Squid if I'm myself scarred by the name Pissy Pants. Listen, you, I'm a real gentleman. No matter what I think, the precious little sibling of my best friend is my step-sibling. Almost flesh and blood. Except, well, Squirt's not even flesh and blood related to Az, are they?
They are Squirt, which just denotes that they are small and pretty much insignificant. That's when we start bringing up our first instance of flesh and blood, which does play a little bit of a role in Chris's side of the story, but we don't even get into that really here. But this starts setting that up. But we start talking about family and relationships and how everything links together. What relationships mean to Burger Pants. So even though he doesn't exactly like Chris, he wouldn't want to be friends with Chris. Chris means something to Azriel, therefore Chris is one of the gang.
The point is, as much as I can say about Azriel Dreamer, he's my best friend in the whole world. I actually like that guy, faults and all. I can't say that much about many people. I'm a man of high standards. I choose quality over quantity, you know? He's a real friend, you hear?
Once again, we see that's not really something that Burger Pants wants to disclose, so he backpedals a little bit, and he's like, no, we're not talking about Chris, we're talking about Azriel. I was talking about Azriel, that's what I wanted to talk about. I was talking about my best friend and how much I like and admire my best friend. And how this shows Burger Pants' good qualities, about how he's discerning and chooses quality over quantity.
Ride or die, or at least the ride part.
Pretty sure that the die is also on the table.
In any case, as for the introduction, name, I guess I'd rather be called Pizza Pants. That was asking his fucking name, I just remembered, holy shit.
And yes, that's the joke. He goes through this whole thing talking about how his preferred name is to be called Pizza Pants. But not only did Azriel know him from the previous life as Burger Pants, but this character is also called Burger Pants in Deltarune. even though it's pretty much fanon that he's Pizza Pants.
I live in hometown, which ain't too far from the city at all. In fact, I can be here any time. I'm a real asset. Day and night, Az will come pick me up and drop me off. He just needs to get his mom's permission first. Why are you making that face? She's really scary, you know. Not scary enough that it'll interfere with the job. I'm definitely your most qualified candidate. My biggest asset is my persistence. I never know when to give up. Wait, don't close the door in my face. What am I supposed to do now? I guess I'll come alright.
And then Burger Pants blurts out that even though he is from a town that is like 30 minutes away, he doesn't even have his own vehicle. He has to get a ride from his best friend to come here every day. And that just completely breaks it. You don't even have reliable transportation to come to work every day. That's it. The interviewer has had enough. They get up, start walking out of the door, which causes Burger Pants to get up and start walking out of the door with them, and tries to state his case about how, no, really, he should be given a chance, he has all these good qualities, and he won't disappoint. Which, of course, the interviewer has just had enough. At this point, this guy is just wasting their time. So she leads him out the door and slams the door in his face, but then he, of course, immediately gives up and calls Azriel, which sets up how he takes rejection. If something bad happens, he wants to quickly move forward and distract himself from it. And that will play in to the rest of the story and how he deals with rejection. And now this is where the real story starts. We have all these crazy subtitles that took inspiration from the titles of light novels, which are usually rambly and ridiculous, and these are from Azriel's perspective. Azriel is the one naming these chapters. In Azriel's story, this space would be taken up by Burger Pants cracking jokes and trying to make it a little bit more lighthearted. But if you were wondering why these were phrased so crazily, that is exactly why. It is Azriel reacting to this chapter.
We have color-coded dialogue.
And yes, we have color-coded dialogue. Azriel is green and Burger Pants is red. Not only because of limitations, which there were limitations, but because it's a little bit symbolic. Azriel being a green light, and Burger Pants being a red light, which gets explained a little bit better in Chapter 4. Although I will admit, I cannot see the differences between these two colors and black, so quite a few times I've had to edit it to make sure that the dialogue color matched the character who was speaking. I think that they're all fixed, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
So, how was the interview? Did you think you got the position? Azriel cruelly stepped down from his seat of the red rust bucket eyesore.
The red rust bucket eyesore. So, I kind of thought that everybody knew this is Asgore's truck. It looks very nice, and it is very obviously blue. So I kind of wanted to throw people off with having like this older, decrepit, falling apart red truck. Nobody commented about it, how this was a different truck than the one in Deltarune, and that's for a reason. That is for a reason we will see later on. And here we have Azriel doing a little backhanded compliment.
Before I knew it, I was out the door, so either I did really well or not so much. Well, I'm sure you did a great job, don't worry. Nothing is better than minimum wage customer service to really test your acting chops. If anyone's a natural, it would be you.
But Azriel, of course, knows where Burger Pants was in the last life, and he pretty much knows what skills Burger Pants is most suited towards. But Azriel knows what went on. He can read Burger Pants physically and mentally, so he's going in there to clean things up after Burger Pants. Azriel has his own reasons for doing this. It's not necessarily because he wants to help his friend get a job. But those details really aren't too important. Those are all Azriel's story. We are talking about Burger Pants right now.
Burger Pants obediently got into the passenger side seat with the door ajar, as he peeked curiously in what direction Azriel had walked.
And then we see Burger Pants' intuition. He knows that this kind of behavior is unusual for Azriel, and that was just an excuse, but he wasn't exactly sure why Azriel went in. He trusts his friend, and he obediently gets in the truck anyway. And we see his paranoia once again. He doesn't want to start up this truck just in case he messes things up. But, as Burger Pants alluded to earlier, when the misfortunes happen, they happen in a way that he couldn't possibly foresee. So, despite all of his cautions, it's never gonna amount to anything. If something's going to happen, it's going to happen regardless. And we'll see that a little bit later on, too.
It should be a crime to say that. Az was a simple person most of the time. He was cheerful, friendly, neat, and overall, pretty vanilla.
And then we see a little bit of Burger Pants' thoughts about Azriel as they currently stand, where Azriel is pretty much as standard as they come. Just a regular guy. That perspective is going to change.
There was no way they could talk about it. Azriel would never bring it up on his own, which was fine, since Azzy never asked Burger Pants any questions in kind. They had the sort of friendship where they could easily turn a blind eye to each other's slip-ups. However, Azriel Dreamer's slip-ups were nothing like his own. At most, Az snuck out of the house to play with the girls when he was supposed to be studying. As for himself, well, Burger Pants once got caught red-handed by the chief of police.
Also, we see how Burger Pants feels a little bit disconnected from his friend. They hang out, they get along, but they're not really that close. They hung out a lot more in school, and now that they've both graduated and are out of high school, things haven't been the same between them. They spend a lot less time together now. And Burger Pants doesn't really understand subtleties. Azriel will invite him out to go places, but Burger Pants doesn't really think that these are real offers, and he always shoots him down. But Burger Pants' mom wanted him to get a job over the summer so that he could provide some money into the household, so that's when Burger Pants called up Azriel and asked him for this huge favor, which Burger Pants doesn't think anything of it. Right now, Burger Pants is in spoiled childhood friend mode. He has never known anything other than taking advantage of Azriel. He thinks that Azriel would have no problems dropping what he's doing to bring Burger Pants back and forth to the city every day. It doesn't even cross his mind. It's not that he's trying to be selfish, it's just the common expected thing, right? Azriel's always trying to do stuff with him, and that's pretty much why Azriel agreed to do this. This is just an excuse for him and Burger Pants to spend a little bit more time together. And then we get to hear Burger Pants talk about the woes in his life and how hard his life is. And we see that they're pretty petty things. Like, he frames these as big, impactful moments in his life, but Azriel's dad caught him with weed one time, and Azriel took up for him. But he's framing it as this huge thing: the chief of police caught me red-handed and I was busted.
Burger Pants sighed and flipped the engine to standby mode to listen to music while he waited. He scanned through all the stations to hear nothing but the same garbage noise.
I threw in the little garbage noise there as a little nod to Deltarune, but honestly, it's just because this truck is so old, it doesn't have an antenna anymore. And also, not having music means that Burger Pants is the kind of person to distract himself with his thoughts, and not having that music is one less distraction to help aid Burger Pants in thinking, and Azriel is very interested in Burger Pants' thoughts.
There were various CDs there, but they varied in a range of annoying to god-awful. It must have been Az's dad's collection.
And then we have the mention of a dad's collection. It was going to reoccur 3 times, but it didn't quite fit in Burger Pants' story. We have Az's dad's collection of awful music, we have Burger Pants' collection of VHS tapes, and we were supposed to have the 3rd dad's collection, which is Asgore and Toriel's wedding bouquet. The wedding bouquet scene had to pretty much be gutted out of the story. So unfortunately we don't have that 3rd dad's collection, which was really the detail that was going to tie everything together. And then we see our first instance of things being stored in that truck.
Burger Pants hastily jerked it away and ripped a small part of the reflective film from the disc. What's this? It didn't crack, but the film ripped?
And then without knowing it, without even meaning to, Burger Pants completely breaks this sentimental item. And this was kind of based off of something I experienced as a kid when I would totally legally burn games with my computer and play them on the Dreamcast. But one time I accidentally messed up the disc and this layer of film came off the CD. And I was wondering how the hell this happened. I didn't think that the discs were plastic with this metal coating on it, so it just blew my little mind. And that was just me drawing from experience because I had no idea what to write. slice of life is not my thing. I don't know how to do narratives, and that's pretty much what this first chapter is me trying to figure out how I'm supposed to write a narrative.
Burger Pants smoothly tried to nudge the CD into the sleeve so that the damage wasn't visible.
Don't let him find out. Al, don't let his dad find out.
Burger Pants groaned out through gritted teeth.
The whole reason why this misfortune happens in the first place is so that I can showcase the difference between Burger Pants' thoughts, which are in parentheses, and Burger Pants whispering things under his breath, which is in quotation marks. I made that distinction, and then I never had Burger Pants mumble anything under his breath. That was me setting up something that never happened. But I hope that the parentheses thing came across. I hope that people understood that the parentheses meant thoughts. Because that's actually pretty important in this fanfic. Azriel sees Burger Pants being mischievous and kind of teases him about it. And then we have the reveal of the stupid nickname.
You have an ear for country now, D-boy. D-boy.
And we see this gets under Burger Pants' skin. He doesn't know why this is happening. And then we have Burger Pants questioning Azriel's taste. And on the matter of taste, Azriel decides to flirt a little bit with him, saying,
Oh really? I'm a bit into everything. You've got to learn to appreciate the songs individually, not just by genre.
You have to look past your expectations of things. So he's pretty much hinting that he's kind of into Burger Pants, but Burger Pants, of course, does not get this at all. And then he goes back to the sentimental disc that he knows Burger Pants was looking at earlier. He doesn't quite know that Burger Pants damaged it, but he knows that Burger Pants was interested in it, so of course he explains it.
We burned a bunch of pirated video game and anime music for my dad. It's actually hilarious to think about now. My dad had no clue what any of this was, but he cherished it for so long. Azriel snorted curtly.
But then talking about this kind of gives him thoughts about his father and how his dad is very sentimental, but very thoughtless in his sentimentality. And what's the point in cherishing things if you're just going to throw them away? So we kind of see Azriel's facade slip a little bit. Not that he has much of a facade instead of Burger Pants, but we kind of see that a little bit here. And so Burger Pants wants to get off this subject, so he is trying his best to transition into something else. He's making fun of Azriel. But of course, Azriel doesn't take it like that. Azriel answers him seriously, thinking that Burger Pants actually does have an interest in him singing. And there would be a reason why Burger Pants would have an interest in him singing, and Azriel has been hoping that Burger Pants would have this interest in him singing. So he's very invested in fanning that flame.
Besides, he'd gone a few times. Azriel was nowhere to be seen after every service. There would be no point. I've got a cassette here somewhere if you're really interested.
Where? I searched the truck earlier. I definitely would have found it if it was in that case.
Burger Pants is not a regular at this church, but he had gone a couple times to see Azriel specifically, but it's not like he could interact with the choir boy as he's singing, and when church dismisses, there's a Dreamer family tradition of them going to the diner afterwards, and I'm setting all this up. Burger Pants does not go to this diner anymore either. This was where the first job interview that he tried when he became of age to work miserably failed, absolutely horribly failed, and he feels this heavy sense of guilt and tries his best to avoid seeing QC. So the very few times that he had gone to see Azriel sing wasn't worth it for him, and he completely stopped going. And yes, I'm so happy that somebody caught the flowery manner. I tried to have flower motifs for Azriel, and Burger Pants has star motifs. And then we see Burger Pants pretty much admit that he was searching through the truck, but he didn't search in the back of the truck. He just looked at the things that were up front. But I'm sure if Burger Pants had searched the whole truck, he would have found quite a few more things, I'll just say. Quite a few more things of interest.
I was just wondering if it was from the time your voice transitioned. It was really rough there for a while, Az.
Once again, Burger Pants tries to distract Azriel a little bit by joking around, and Azriel is actually really into this idea of getting Burger Pants to sing with him.
If that's all you wanted, we should be able to do some karaoke with me. We could sing a super off-key duet. It'll be the show for the ages.
And scare off all the ladies. I can do that on my own.
It obviously wasn't a sincere invitation anyway. When did Azriel have time to go off to karaoke? After school, track, homework, volunteering, church, choir practice, and spending quality time with the split-up family. Azriel's face lit up, and he let out a delightfully genuine laugh. Was self-deprecation really that funny?
But, Burger Pants immediately dismisses this. He doesn't think it's a real offer, and he doesn't exactly like hanging out with a group of friends. He kind of just likes when it's him and Azriel. Not only that, he does realize that Azriel has a pretty busy life. Azriel shouldn't have the time to be able to do all this, which is pretty much true. Azriel takes time out to cater to Burger Pants. Azriel has a very, extremely jam-packed, busy life, and that's kind of by design. Toriel kind of designed it to where Azriel didn't have all this free time, right? So of course, Azriel wouldn't get into trouble, but Azriel will drop things to go off and play with Burger Pants. And Azriel kind of thinks about this and resonates with Burger Pants' thoughts on the matter. He kind of has these derisive thoughts about himself, about how he's so hung up on this guy. Burger Pants doesn't know anything that's going on in Azriel's head, and Burger Pants thinks that Azriel's laughing based off the last thing he said, which was scaring off the ladies. He doesn't realize that Azriel isn't laughing at his own self-deprecation, but Azriel's self-deprecation. This goes to show that Azriel doesn't think that things are going to work out with Burger Pants, and this soft rejection kind of sealed the deal. That despite taking advantage of Azriel and using him to go get this job, Burger Pants still doesn't want to go out and do things that Azriel wants to do. So that gives Azriel a little bit of a change of heart, and Burger Pants is not aware of any of this happening. Burger Pants is still lost in thought, thinking about how horribly that job interview went, and how he wants nothing more than to go home and pretend that it never happened. To just forget about everything.
Why was it that Burger Pants couldn't help but spill his guts in front of strangers, but couldn't bring up a single topic in front of his best friend? Was it the lack of understanding? No, not of Azriel, but of the strangers. He desperately has to explain himself to other people, but Az always seemed to get him just fine. In fact, it was because there was a mutual understanding between them that he couldn't ask about what happened earlier.
And then we see Burger Pants confess that he knows he goes on these rants around strangers trying to explain himself, and how the only place that he really feels comfortable being himself is in Azriel's presence. For some reason, Azriel seems to get him when nobody else does. And he feels a little bit inferior that Azriel is able to get him while he doesn't quite understand Azriel. And that's a conflict that stays steadfast throughout this whole story, is Burger Pants not quite understanding Azriel. But at this point, he doesn't know why Azriel can understand him more than he can understand Azriel. Because if you remember, Burger Pants is pretty good at intuiting people. He's pretty good at knowing what people are thinking and feeling, just based on their body language and their tone of voice. But for some reason, Azriel always throws him off. That's why he says this guy is pretty vanilla, but then he's also extremely mysterious, and he can't possibly ask him what's going on in his head. And then we have this line.
If Azriel really did go in to wash his hands, well, he's the kind of guy to take him along.
Which shows that their relationship isn't quite normal. Azriel drags him into doing things that aren't quite normal. But Burger Pants, of course, doesn't see it as abnormal, because Azriel is his childhood friend. That's the only basis he really has for friendship. So Burger Pants is just thinking on the whole ride there, and finally he gets some relief whenever he sees familiar territory.
What happened to all that destiny talk about hopes and dreams from earlier?
And we have a mention of hopes and dreams. Hopes and dreams will become a recurring motif in this. Azriel's hopes and Burger Pants' dreams.
He tried running away from home a couple times, only to camp out at the Dreamer's house. No, he didn't make it very far. But where else could a child go?
And then once again we have Burger Pants talking about how hard a life he has, and how when his parents were going through divorce, Which, of course, Azriel's parents were also around this time, going through their own issues. But at this point in time, Burger Pants decided to bunk up with Azriel and go stay over at the Dreamer's house, because he was fed up with his home life. But he frames this as him undergoing some kind of hardship by having to leave his home to go sleep over at a friend's house. That he really knows the difficulties of life, when really he's been spoiled his whole life, and he isn't even aware of it.
While their home was always open and inviting to friends, Mrs. Dreamer had always had that knowing look in her eye.
And this is where we get a look on Burger Pants' true thoughts about Toriel. She always seems to keep a suspicious eye on him, and in turn, Burger Pants has this irrational fear of Toriel. We'll figure out why later.
This shit slaps, says chat. It's engaging so far. I'm engaged as fuck.
Thank you very much for that commentary. It definitely helped me feel better.
Thinking of that time, it was only one of the instances where Burger Pants could remember Az getting upset with him.
And then we see Burger Pants really thinks of Azriel as his one true friend. The one that he can always lean upon. And this gets Burger Pants to think about how they pretty much have this perfect friendship. They barely ever fight. They seem to get along oddly well, except for this one incident that he could recall, and he kind of thinks back on what exactly happened.
It's not like they tore up the house or anything. That was a job for Squirt, after all.
And then I slip in this little throwaway line about how Chris gets in trouble for tearing up the house. This line will make a little bit more sense later in Chapter 5. In fact, this whole scene, pretty much has a different meaning whenever we do get into the events of Chapter 5.
They'd each take turns drawing a part of a picture and turn it for the other to edit. The picture started off pretty tame, but eventually ended up somewhat inappropriate, at least by Mrs. Dreamer standards.
So, Baby Burger Pants, he is enamored by watching Azriel draw out all these cool things, and he wants to join in. So, he kind of starts drawing on this paper with Azriel, and this kind of takes Azriel by surprise, but Azriel lets him join in, and Burger Pants doesn't realize just how much of an impact he is making on Azriel's life by doing this stupid thing. And of course, Burger Pants doesn't have any drawing skills. Burger Pants kind of relies on shock humor to make what he's doing seem more valuable. So Azriel might draw something a little bit risky, but Burger Pants will just immediately try to top him, make it the most outlandishly awful thing that he possibly could imagine. And the two kind of bond over this.
In other pictures, limbs would get chopped off, and there'd be guts and gore aplenty. Having said that, it was normal kind of icky kids would draw when trying to push the boundaries. None of it was particularly offensive. At least not until middle school, when they'd become properly aware of the differences between certain body parts. Suddenly the limbs and organs that were missing from people from previous pictures were found in abundance. It didn't matter if it made sense, the more of it the better. It was naughty, therefore it was hilarious.
And that leads them to their teenage years, where the drawings kind of transitioned from crime and guts and gore, all of a sudden to more sexual themes. Which, of course, Azriel is more than happy to participate in with him. Azriel does not shy away from this, because now these are Burger Pants' interests, and this is something that's making him laugh and him react. So now there's yet another thing that they can bond over. So they both kind of start upping the ante, trying to get a reaction out of the other person, and one day this goes a little bit too far.
Perhaps because they were a bit older at the time, fueled by the contents of the cover, they were particularly inspired to go ham defacing it, and bumping up source material a couple of age ratings. The problem was that Az didn't remember making any adjustments at all. He somehow thought Burger Pants had done it all by himself.
Azriel was furious by these events. And of course, Burger Pants feels that this was unjustified, because this is what they've been doing the whole time. Why are things different now? And also, he doesn't want Azriel to be mad at him. He wants to try to talk his way out of this, and he absolutely cannot. So he concedes to have a talk with Chris and apologize to Chris, not knowing the full scope of everything that went on behind the scenes, and what exactly he was apologizing for in the first place. Burger Pants has these thoughts, but he immediately wants to distract himself again whenever he thinks about it, so he's looking out at the scenery and he sees his apartment and he's like, finally, home, I can go rest and relax. I don't have to worry about this interview anymore. Everything's going to be chill from here on out. And that's when Burger Pants says,
Hey, bud, thanks for taking me all the way over there to shoot my shot. I'll knock him dead next time.
I don't think you have to keep shooting your shot, D-boy. I'm fairly confident you've already got it in the bag.
Sure thing. Nowhere to go but up.
which Azrael, of course, is flirting, but Burger Pants doesn't understand this. And then we have a play on a line that Burger Pants said in Undertale. In Undertale, he was talking about going up into the human world. In this story, he's talking about his shitty apartment complex that he lives in. So he's going up, but he's not quite moving on up. And then Burger Pants notices that Azrael turned off the truck. So he looks over to Azrael, and Azrael's like,
So I was thinking, why don't I hang out at your place today, for old time's sake?
which, of course, Burger Pants finds offense with. He does not want Azrael to follow him here. He does not want to spend time with Azrael right now. He wants to completely forget about this day. He wants to get fucked up and not think about anything and just drift off to sleep. He does not want to have to entertain Azrael, and this pushback is yet another rejection that Burger Pants gives Azrael. And this just further fuels Azrael to do what he does in the next chapter.
Azzy, you should probably call your mom first, right?
Burger Pants isn't outright rejecting him, it's still these soft rejections. Still reminding him that his mom wouldn't want him to be out late.
I'm staying with my dad tonight, Az declared triumphantly, as if he'd gotten his way.
Which Azrael pretty much uses staying over at his dad's house as an excuse to go off and do whatever he wants. Which kind of shows us a little peek into Azrael's relationship with Asgore in this world, and how it's not exactly a close one.
Or me. You should probably ask me if I'm alright with this first. Don't I gotta say? What do you intend to do, coming over to my dingy, cramped room? Wash your hands?
We have yet again, Burger Pants will not express his true thoughts in his dialogue, but he lets it all out whenever he's thinking. He thinks one thing, but he can't possibly say those venomous words, especially not in front of Azrael. So he gives Azrael these soft rejections, but in his mind, he's actually telling Azrael the truth, not knowing that Azrael can actually hear his thoughts. But this is nothing new to Azrael. Azrael has always been able to read Burger Pants, so it's not really a surprise. In fact, he kind of likes how candid Burger Pants is in his thoughts, and just how much care he puts into the words that he speaks out loud to Azrael. So even though he wants to completely reject him and tell him, today's not a good day for you to hang out with me, he tries to get Azrael to go away of his own accord. Of course, Azrael is not falling for it, and he knows that Burger Pants isn't going to give him any pushback, so he moves forward with his little plan. And at this point, Azrael has pretty much solidified his plan, that he and Burger Pants don't really have this great relationship, but it's not something that he's willing to give up. So he is going to try to open up to Burger Pants and explain some things, and see his reaction.
If cleanliness is next to godliness, you'll probably need a lot more than hand washing if you step foot in there, buddy.
And this is where our motif comes in, of cleanliness, and water, and washing hands, and of course, the sink. These themes are present throughout the entirety of the story. And what Burger Pants is saying right here, this is exactly what Azrael was referencing by the beginning title. So the title of this chapter is just Azrael's witty retort, which of course he also doesn't say to Burger Pants. And that pretty much concludes Chapter 1. Which leads us to Chapter 2, the real bread and butter of this story. It was my favorite writing, it was my favorite concept, and I pretty much did whatever I wanted to do in this chapter. It was a closed room, both are not thinking very clearly, they're both influenced, so they are at their rawest selves, having this conflict. I did kind of know that the length of my fic was way too long, so I kind of cut it off in the middle of 2, right before all shit hits the fan, where the crazy stuff really starts happening. And just in case people were sensitive to the issues that I brought up, that was a good place to leave things off. I wrote a little summary, explaining the rest of the events that happened in the story, so nobody felt like they were missing out if they did decide it was too much and they had to quit reading. Again, I did not think that this was going to be on stream, so I was just doing this for anybody who possibly read it. But I'm very glad that this was read on stream and we were able to read the entirety of Chapter 2, because I have some concepts in there that I really liked. Yes, there were some pretty messed up things that happened, but a lot of the interactions, the real, raw interactions between Azriel and Burger Pants, they don't happen till, like, the end of that chapter. And I'm really grateful that Andrew gave it a chance and gave it that platform.
The couch was so small that they would be practically touching if you squeezed next to him, so Burger Pants resigned himself to the floor.
So we have Burger Pants reluctantly invites Azriel into his room and picks up a little bit, folds back his sofa bed, which looks like this, which shows a little bit how Burger Pants is treated in his family. He has his own room, but he doesn't have his own bed. Not a real bed. These are supposed to be used for whenever guests come over, but Burger Pants is using this as his long-term bed. Burger Pants doesn't exactly feel comfortable with this situation. Burger Pants wanted to come home, rest and relax, and now Azriel's here. He doesn't exactly know how to entertain guests, and since Azriel is his friend, his best friend, he decides to go along with the plans that he had previously, just with Azriel here now. And he learns in a little bit that that's not exactly what's going to happen.
It was hard not to notice all the differences in the rooms scattered with evidence of the growing interest he'd taken up in the time of his friend's absence. Of course, Azriel shouldn't mind too much. If anything, he'll act as oblivious as always, right?
And here I am hinting at Burger Pants has definitely grown up since the last time that Azriel has stepped foot in this room. Burger Pants has posters of half-naked women and a lot of weed paraphernalia scattered across his room. He doesn't have very much decorations. The only furniture that we really know of is the combination TV VHS, the dresser that it stands on, the particle board bookshelf, and this sofa bed. So Burger Pants really isn't a materialistic person, but he's really into his hobbies, just like he's really into his one friend. He has certain interests, very particular interests, and he pretty much runs those into the ground.
It's his room, his house. He'd had a long day. That was reason enough to pretend that having Azriel here didn't bother him.
So we see he doesn't really want to be embarrassed in front of Azriel, but Azriel is kind enough to just not mention it and pay it no mind. So Burger Pants feels comfortable enough to just go ahead and comfort himself, pretty much. Because it's not like he invited Azriel over, right? Azriel wanted to walk into his world, so Burger Pants is going to let him walk into his world, regardless of what that entails. Burger Pants offers,
You want to join me? It'd be pretty awkward to have you staring at me the whole time, eh?
And then Azriel turns him down, stating that this really isn't his thing, which, in this case, it really isn't. He is more into edibles than he is smoking. He does not like the smell of weed. And that's kind of one thing that irritates him about Burger Pants' hobbies. But Azriel doesn't just leave it at that. He takes a little extra jab just to see how Burger Pants is going to react. And of course, Burger Pants completely falls into the palm of his hand.
Don't worry, I won't tell anyone.
You rotten bastard,
Burger Pants seethed.
I was there when you tried your first smoke. I was there when you got passed out drunk on fruity drinks at Caddy's house. I know what you're like underneath your public-facing facade. Why do you even bother to hide it in front of me? To feel superior?
What's wrong? You're looking at me funny, Az giggled.
Azriel absolutely loves this. He loves when Burger Pants is condescending to him. He gets joy out of hearing Burger Pants not speak his mind, but think his thoughts. He loves hearing what Burger Pants has to say about him, what his actual feelings are. Azriel in this story is a very self-deprecating character. He has the memories of his past life as Flowey, and he feels this tremendous guilt. He has not only PTSD, but CPTSD. He is going through a lot of issues, And hearing Burger Pants saying these things just validates him. Like, Burger Pants understands who Azriel actually is. Azriel relishes that feeling of understanding. Burger Pants is one of the only people in this world who gets him, who truly understands who he is. So that's why we have this scene here.
That's not a natural reaction, right? Where did it come from? Nothing happened yet.
Nothing happened yet. We'll return in Chapter 5 with a completely different context.
I'm just thinking, you're such a good boy, Azriel. That's what everyone thinks, right? Azriel Dreamer, what a charming prince. An angel sent from the heavens. I just hope I'm not making you too uncomfortable.
But then what Burger Pants says next is the exact opposite of what Azriel wanted to hear from him. So this kind of takes Azriel aback. That moment of happiness didn't last too long, so Azriel decides to try to transition into the real reason that he's here, laying the foundations down that he is here because there have been some issues with Chris lately, and the circumstances that are going to happen in this world will be very detrimental to Azriel. Azriel does not belong in this world. This is just the one that he enjoys spending time in. He has to go back before this event happens. So he's, one, trying to vent out his frustrations involving Chris and the matter at hand, and two, see if Burger Pants will possibly willingly go with him. And the best place to start is with Chris. So this is where the beginnings of the misunderstandings start to happen.
This is why Burger Pants disliked attractive people. Maybe it was a survival instinct, but they all seemed to play dumb. They were natural schemers, and he knew exactly how to get what they wanted, or they did, rather.
This Freudian slip is glorious. Burger Pants does not realize that he is doing the exact same thing that he is assuming Azriel is doing. Burger Pants is constantly using Azriel's feelings for him to get whatever he wants out of Azriel. Burger Pants does not think of it like this. He thinks they have this normal friendship, and he is thinking back to Caddy and Brady and how they are always coercing him to do stupid things, and he falls for it every time because he thinks they're pretty. And because they are within his rank. They already have that connection through Azriel, and they're not too off limits. If he was going to have a relationship with somebody in hometown, these two would be the best bet. So Azriel probes Burger Pants and tries to see his thoughts on Chris. Burger Pants does not have the best relationship with Chris, or the best thoughts about Chris, and Azriel knows this, so he pushes him a little bit further.
I've never known anyone so pure in my entire life. It's absolutely captivating. Burger Pants hesitated for a moment, wondering if he was about to step on a landmine. However, he just had to know. To what extent was Azriel's bias toward Chris?
And these are real feelings that Azriel has. Chris is pure, as in, Chris does whatever Chris wants to do. They are not swayed by anyone else's influence, and that's what this means. Burger Pants is thinking that Azriel is saying they are an innocent little angel, and Burger Pants, of course, finds this kind of inflammatory and decides to gently push the subject. But this whole thing kind of gets Burger Pants to think about the relationship between Chris and Azriel, right? Burger Pants is thinking they're kind of close for siblings, so he definitely pries into this subject. So Azriel's kind of egging Burger Pants on to see his thoughts, but Burger Pants is getting the completely wrong idea about this, which will only be compounded further.
You remember that one time little buddy tried to make you coffee but accidentally left chicken bones at the bottom of the mug?
That's right, it was hot chocolate actually. It wasn't an accident. They put them there on purpose.
So we've set up a couple things. Azriel willing to drink hot chocolate with Chris because that's a thing that Chris enjoys.
In what world was finding bones at the bottom of your cup adorable? Most rational people would think it's a threat, especially considering his diet.
We have the fact that Azriel is a vegetarian.
Remember that time they put packs of ketchup in your track shoes?
Azriel slapped his knee as if he told the best joke he'd ever heard. They were afraid I was going to lose the race, so they put packets there so I could catch up to my opponent.
We have Burger Pants' understanding of Azriel's after-school activities being track. Of course, it's cross-country. We also have Chris being sneaky and playing these pranks, but kind of being able to talk their way out of it. And,
Yeah, and the time they dumped a full bouquet of roses in your bed while you were sick. What were they thinking?
Oh, that funny story. My mom was watching a rom-com while Chris was there in the front room, silently watching along. She must have forgotten they were present, so when Chris asked why the rose petals were spread on the late lady's bed, it scared the hell out of her.
Last but not least, we have a little look into some of Chris's issues here with this dialogue.
Since Mom deftly skirted over the romantic implications, Chris formulated the idea that roses have healing properties. Along with my dad, they spent the whole day picking out good ones for me. Too bad they got crushed.
Toriel obviously knowing that Chris is uncomfortable around some subjects and skirts around the issue, Azriel also being aware of those subjects that are off limits. Burger Pants isn't quite aware to the extent that these issues impact Chris. And we see that Azriel doesn't really have that much good to say about his dad, except when it comes to Chris, how Asgore treats Chris. That kind of lays the foundations for a little bit of Azriel's story, and a little bit of Chris's as well.
Think about the bed full of thorns. Did it hurt? Is it fun being surprised with 1,000 tiny cuts in your sickbed?
Burger Pants felt like he was about to have a stroke.
All of this comes as a surprise to Burger Pants. Being cut by the thorns of a whole bouquet of roses on your bed must have been agonizing to experience, and you're laughing this off? We get the baseline reaction of Burger Pants, how he normally reacts to things. This stupid little thing of Azriel remembering this kind of outlandish memory makes him fly totally off the handle, which gets contrast by the end of the story, where Azriel starts really laying crazy things out there, and Burger Pants at that point barely has any reaction to them anymore. Burger Pants changes throughout this story. He becomes a different person by the end of this story. But here we could see, even this, Burger Pants is empathetic and has a visceral reaction to this thing that happened. And he's unaware that he will have many reactions to the events that are going to happen throughout this night.
Chris truly could do nothing wrong in his eyes, even bullying the ill. Actually, that's a strange detail to pop into his head. What was up with his best friend being bedridden? Did he ever think to question it before?
So yes, this little interaction has Burger Pants questioning Azriel and Chris's relationship. We have what that relationship is actually like, and we're also hinting at the boss monster thing. Azriel is a boss monster, and in Let That Sink In lore, that is a significant detail. Boss monsters are different from regular monsters. Boss monsters have certain roles in this world, and because of that, they have certain properties. Azriel would not usually get ill, not bedridden kind of ill, because his body heals very quickly. So for Azriel to have been sick enough to stay in his house for a whole week, something really must have gone wrong, and that causes Burger Pants to think about it and question it.
Is this like actually some retroactive Kara shit?
And this is the point where I was actually excited for this fanfic to be read. This right here. This one comment, and all of a sudden, I wasn't as worried until, we got into the crazy stuff. Then I was worried again.
She actually bit me, but everything got found out. I tried to take up for Bratty by saying, Catty slapped me with her claws. We all wound up having to get tetanus shots.
And then, through this, we see that Azriel isn't this perfect angel like people think that he is. He is readily willing to lie to other people's faces so that he gets the best outcome. And we'll see him lie quite a bit to Burger Pants in this story.
How could that be? My mom grounded me for a long time. Aside from church, I was forbidden to contact anyone.
That's harsh, dude.
Burger Pants sucked in a breath. It was a lot to process at once. Grounded because of the kiss, or because he got bitten? What kind of logic was that?
And then we have this weird revelation that Azriel was grounded for this, as if Azriel had done something wrong. We see Burger Pants kind of question this, And he starts thinking maybe there was more to it than just what Azriel was saying. And he starts thinking about that, how they might be closer than Burger Pants had thought. And without realizing it, Burger Pants really wants to know all of a sudden just how much closer they are to Azriel than he is. So then Burger Pants brings this up. And then this throws Azriel off, not knowing exactly who Burger Pants is thinking of. Of course, Azriel already has Burger Pants in his heart, but even though Azriel keeps dropping hints, Burger Pants doesn't seem to quite be aware of this.
Who do you like more?
Huh? But between who? Between you and...
Bratty and Catty, they hate each other, so don't dream of taking both. Which one would you prefer?
So yes, between who? So who do I like more? Between Bratty and you, or between Chris and you? Burger Pants is talking about between these two girls, who do you like better? And in all honesty, Azriel doesn't like either of them. He finds them both to be a little bit annoying, especially since they keep clawing after him and thoroughly enjoy using him both for his money and his status.
That's... how can I choose? They're like my sisters.
So he says this in the gentlest way possible, that he's not interested in them.
Author's note. After this scene, all shit hits the fan. It becomes a train wreck of biblical proportions.
And with that cliffhanger, that is where I left off. That is the stopping point for anybody who did not like the subject matter in the rest of the story. They could quit here, read the little summary that I provided, and they won't be missing out on the context of the rest of the story. It's a little bit of closure. Of course, there's a lot that happens that I didn't talk about, but again, that's all touchy subjects. From here on out, it really does become a wild ride. I get into all kinds of messy topics, and immediately after this, we go into some of those awkward misunderstandings, and they start talking about more mature themes. So that's how I got the word count that I had. This is where I cut off this story so that nobody was offended or triggered by the rest of the material in the story. This is a good place to stop, and anybody who wanted to read the rest of it, they had that option. So if I'm going to be all honest here, the prologue, chapter 1, chapter 2, and the ending segment, those were all written in the span of 3 days. I just took all the thoughts in my head and immediately just spent hours and hours penning it down, barely taking any breaks, barely eating or drinking. It was just writing the story. That's what I did with all of my free time. And the rest of the time that I spent on the story mostly was just polishing it, making sure that the dialogue flowed well, making sure that my grammar wasn't horrible, or at least was passing enough, making sure that Azriel's dialogue quirks and Burger Pants' dialogue quirks stood out. And for some of Burger Pants' dialogue, it was really hard for me to think of these puns, but I pretty much rushed through a majority of the story, and I think that it shows. But then, of course, because I rushed through it, everything was fresh in my mind, so I could call back the specific wording that I used for specific scenes, and I could have that play into something later on.
Sisters that publicly twerk all over you? The biting is not an issue. Oddly enough, that could be chalked up to sibling rivalry.
So we see Burger Pants isn't immediately dismissing this thought off the table.
But the kissing, would you kiss your own sister?
Then we kind of get into Burger Pants' intrusive thoughts about how strange that interaction earlier was, and how Chris could do no wrong in Azriel's eyes, and he's piecing this together, like, is it possible that Azriel is actually into his sibling? And he kind of thinks about that a little bit. He knows Azriel well enough to know that that's not really the case, but he realizes that there's something wrong, there's something strange about their relationship, and before he could think too deeply about it, Azriel interrupts him.
How shameful can you be? I know everything you're thinking. That's kind of messed up, don't you think?
Pray tell, Dreamer, what am I thinking? Do you actually know? How could anyone know the lead on where my thoughts are going? No offense to myself, but even I can't control where they end up.
And straight up tells him that he could read Burger Pants' thoughts, which can seem like just an expression, but in Azriel's case, it's actually true. Azriel is peeking in onto what Burger Pants is thinking, and Azriel is kind of blindsided by this. Azriel's here trying to incorporate Burger Pants into his life, and Burger Pants has the exact opposite idea. That now all of a sudden Chris is the one that he's interested in, which at this point, it kind of seems like Burger Pants thinks that Azriel is into everybody except for himself. So Azriel kind of gets the idea in his mind, he has to remedy this. He has to come on a little bit stronger to Burger Pants. And we'll see that thought blossom a little bit later in the story.
This is the inherent dilemma of the inventive mind, a blessing and a curse. Do you think it's easy for me? The script is a surprise to me every time. Good thing for you, my improv skills are top-notch.
And now we get into the first Burger Pants thought monologue, where we could see his thoughts start to be influenced and changed into these long, drug-out monologues.
I was just asking, are you more of the tails or scales kind of guy? I'm more of a scales guy myself, you know?
Burger Pants already had plans about what he was going to do whenever he got home, and Azriel invited himself over, and Azriel's his buddy, and Azriel usually turns a blind eye to whatever crazy shit Burger Pants does, just like he did with the weed earlier. So Burger Pants decides to just go for it. He's letting Azriel into his private life, into his routine.
Listen, I got a couple videos from my dad's collection and thought, since you're the special guest, you should have the honor of choosing.
And this is something that Burger Pants, based off his previous experiences with Azriel, he thinks that this is something that they might be able to bond over anyway, so he just decides to go with it and see what happens. Azriel's uncomfortable with this situation, is absolutely not interested in Burger Pants' porn, so he tries to reject him by playing ignorant, but Burger Pants knows Azriel all too well. This is the kind of way that Azriel would act anyway, just like with the weed earlier. He played innocent, like he didn't know what was happening. So this is just a standard Azriel response to Burger Pants, and he continues on, naming out all these titles to kind of feel out what Azriel is into, because Burger Pants is a little bit interested in this too. He's kind of interested in getting to know his buddy a little bit better.
What are you rattling off all of a sudden? How can you say those things with such a straight face?
Would you rather me say them with a twisted face? Listen, we just need to lighten the mood, chill out. We're so tired of my wayward thoughts. I should clear my mind. What better way than this?
There's no way this isn't awkward, Pizza Pants. You can't convince me that this bros hang out and watch porn together. You can't convince me that's a thing that people do.
And I'm sorry, but it most definitely is. I remember being a little bitty kid, and we would have these watch parties of these random VCDs that we burned from anime off the internet that we could play in my Dreamcast. So, we saw quite a few things as kids that we definitely weren't ready for, and as an adult, I'm sure that I wouldn't be ready for either. We definitely saw some shit. Of course, as kids, we kind of just watched whatever was readily available to us. We didn't choose anything, it was just whatever was out there, anything goes. So there is some real-life experience in here. And again, Azriel kind of expresses his disgust towards this, but Burger Pants doesn't think too much about it, and once again, questions Azriel about this. But Burger Pants kind of doubles down. This is his routine. He is not going to stop what he usually does just because Azriel's over. If Azriel really was offended by this, then he would just leave.
Since these were kind of comparisons circulating in his brain, he already entered the Zen state of stupidity long ago. In that case, merely stupid wasn't good enough.
He's already fucked up enough to be having all these wild, crazy thoughts, and that's still not getting his mind off of all of the stuff from the interview earlier, so he needs some kind of distraction.
Why are you acting like so shy? I'm asking you what you like.
I'm not being modest or anything. I'm not interested.
You just gotta find the right one, bud.
The classic line that people give asexuals, oh, you just haven't found the right one. So Burger Pants doubles down and asks Azriel what he likes to watch. And Azriel, point blank, tells him he is not interested in porn. But Burger Pants doesn't really believe him, because again, Azriel kind of plays innocent, so Burger Pants is trying to get Azriel to open up. But Azriel was being very sincere. He is not interested in porn. That is the furthest thing away from him. Azrael does not fantasize about these things like Burger Pants does. He is only interested in one person, and that one person is not interested in him.
Surely something's gotta be interesting to you.
I highly doubt that, D-boy. Just drop it.
So he tells Burger Pants to drop the subject, and he trusts that Burger Pants will listen to him and drop the subject.
Just name something, huh? We probably got it.
Once again, Burger Pants gives him a pushback, and Azrael never was able to handle Burger Pants' pushback very well. Azrael kind of caves in to a lot of Burger Pants' whims, and we saw that earlier, and this is one thing that he's not really willing to cave in on. He doesn't want to watch the person that he's had a crush on forever interested in somebody other than himself. This is just not a good time for Azrael at all. So Burger Pants asks Azrael to just name something, and Azrael in his mind is thinking that Burger Pants has dropped the subject and is talking about anything whatsoever. And Azrael is not interested in watching TV. Azrael is interested in having this discussion with Burger Pants, the discussion that he's put off for far too long, and now the time for them is dwindling. His plans have changed now. He realized some things were going to happen that he wasn't expecting, and also, him and Burger Pants aren't really getting along lately. They don't have the same relationship that they used to when they were still in high school together. So those two things combined led Azrael down this path that he's on. And he has been thinking this over for quite some time. So much so that he and Chris started having some disagreements about what Azrael ultimately decides to do. So he just wants to vent and put everything out there and see if Burger Pants would possibly willingly go with him, if Burger Pants would possibly listen to him, empathize with him, just kind of test how far that their relationship can go. He is not interested in distractions right now. So he just asks for any kind of anime that would lead him on the topic that would fuel their discussion. But what he says is,
What about something with humans? I don't really care what genre. Whatever you usually watch is good.
which, of course, Burger Pants completely misunderstands. In Burger Pants' mind, we are still talking about porn, and that is scary. Things start adding up with the Chris conversation from earlier, and Burger Pants connects this with that, and that completely startles him. And while he thought that he was ready to hear whatever come out of Azrael's mouth, he was absolutely not ready for this. This is the worst case scenario. This is a dangerous situation. And he's starting to see Azrael in a different kind of light.
What the fuck is happening, says Chad. Either you know or you don't at this point. I can't help you anymore. I can barely help myself.
Oh, Jesus, I love it.
This was a no judgment zone. Everyone's a little bit fucked up, but that, what brand of fucked up? How much? Was it vanilla or radical raspberry razzle dazzle or fucked up?
So yeah, Burger Pants is trying to parse the implications of this statement, and Azrael can see this. Azrael can see all of Burger Pants' thought process, and Azrael is shocked beyond belief by these thoughts that Burger Pants is having, and immediately tries to shut him down.
Not porn, stupid. I meant anime. I want to talk to you about something that's been bugging me, okay? I wanted to smoothly transition into it, but things keep getting off track.
Because even after all of this, even after everything that Azrael has done to try to show and tell Burger Pants his feelings for him, Burger Pants still entertains the idea of Azrael having a crush on Chris, way before he ever entertains the idea that Azrael is actually crushing on him. So Azrael completely shuts him down and then tells him the truth of what's really happening, is he just wants to talk about what's going on in his life, and he can't take this social staging anymore. Every time Azrael tries to lead them down this conversation naturally, Burger Pants completely throws him off course, and they start talking about something wildly different. So Azrael tells him this as directly as possible, and while it does get through to Burger Pants, Burger Pants understands what Azriel is saying and concedes to have this discussion with Azriel. This is absolutely not the thing that Burger Pants wants to do. This is the exact opposite of what Burger Pants wants to do. Burger Pants is a very physically charged person, so he is not thinking anything when he is watching porn. He is just focused on whatever's happening. If he's having a discussion, he has to go through hearing what the other person's saying and process what they're saying, and he has to focus on his body language and make sure that his body language is appropriate reactions to what the person is saying, and then he has to formulate his own thoughts and interpret them in a way that is supportive towards his friend, and that is something he does not want to do right now. This is so far from what he wants to do. He doesn't want to think and process thoughts and have more things to think about. All he wants to do is veg out, and now he can't possibly do that. But it's a rare thing for Azriel to actually want to open up to him, so Burger Pants goes along with it reluctantly. Because what kind of friend would he be if he shuts him down now?
Since Burger Pants hardly reacted, Azriel continued.
But Burger Pants doesn't want to put in the effort to social cues and everything, so he's sitting off by his stash, just smoking away, while Azriel's telling him all this stuff. He has his back turned towards Azriel, and while he is listening to him and thinking about what he's saying, he's pretty much closed off to Azriel. And we learn later on that Azriel can't read all of Burger Pants' thoughts. Azriel can only read the thoughts in which Burger Pants is very open about them, and usually Burger Pants is very unguarded in expressing his thoughts, but right now he's very guarded because he doesn't want to be in this situation. So Azriel cannot hear all the things that Burger Pants is thinking right now, which is kind of a detriment and leads to the events that are going to happen later. Because while Burger Pants doesn't exactly understand Azriel, he kind of intuits some things about Azriel that are spot on. Like, he predicts that Azriel and Chris must have had some kind of fight earlier, which they did. They did have a disagreement earlier, and that's kind of what prompted Azriel into this mess in the first place. Azriel is very sensitive to being rejected by his chosen people, and Burger Pants and Chris are both ones that he sees as real people, the ones that he could talk to and actually trust, because Azriel, since he was little, had these visions of Undertale, pretty much, what he did as Flowey, and he kind of, in the back of his mind, thinks that everything he's experiencing ever since childhood is a little bit of a simulation. He knows what these people are thinking, and he knows how to please them, and he knows pretty much everything about them. So a lot of the people in Hometown, he doesn't really see as real people. Not to mention the fact that he does come from a different world, and there were copies of these same exact people in his world as well, so there's also that he's had to contend with since an early age. So whatever people he does trust, he does put his trust in, those people are extremely important to him, which is why he came to Burger Pants with this, but Burger Pants is not aware of any of this. Burger Pants is dealing with his own issues right now.
Chris hates humans, can't talk about them, won't even look at pictures. Aside from a home, we don't share any common interests. We're nothing alike, it's hard to get along all the time without putting in the effort. Do you know how exhausting it is?
So the first thing out of Azriel's mouth is pretty much talking about his relationship with Chris, and kind of trying to ease Burger Pants out of that mindset that he had earlier, that, no, I don't have those kinds of feelings for Chris. In fact, it's kind of hard just to maintain courtesy with Chris. Sometimes it's hard just pretending to get along with them.
There isn't much I can seriously talk about without scaring Chris, because Chris doesn't want to admit that they're human. So how could I bear to tell them about the life cycles of monsters? Why they're different than the rest of the family. Mom can't do it either, and I doubt she ever tried.
And then he talks a little bit about the struggles that he has in his home life involving Chris and also his mother. How his mom has been hiding all of these secrets from them ever since they were little. That didn't create the best of environment for him growing up. Nobody has been open in talking about all these issues that they're facing. And Chris had been having problems ever since Azriel started going through puberty and having all of these obvious changes about them, and having this crisis about their own identity. Of course, at this point, Azriel can't really get into the meat of the situation because Burger Pants knows so little about what's actually going on with this world. He can't exactly spill out all of his troubles. So he's handling Burger Pants with baby gloves, trying to very broadly go over the strokes of what's going on in his life, and seeing how Burger Pants reacts to this. He doesn't want to be judged by Burger Pants. He doesn't want Burger Pants thinking that he's crazy and scare him off. So he is going about this as normally and plainly as he possibly can.
He briefly looked over to his friend for validation, but Burger Pants was too busy fooling around with stuff on the floor. He was listening right?
Azriel's still not really able to judge Burger Pants' reaction, and that's kind of frustrating him, so he gets a little bit more personal about things, about how he hates having to be the guardian of this world as well. He had already left his other world, and yet he's doing the same exact thing in this world, except by choice, because he can't possibly see the people that he cares about being hurt or being sad.
I want to get out of here and be myself for once, without everyone looking expectantly to me. I need to be who they want me to be, someone they can always rely on to be their comfort and support. I thought maybe you were the same, that you wanted to escape.
So he brings this up to convey to Burger Pants, I am going to leave this place, and I'd like you to go with me. But how he states this is very vague, which makes Burger Pants think that Azriel is talking about going away, like any young adult at this age would talk about. Burger Pants himself has fantasies about going out into the world and making something of himself. He doesn't want to stay stuck here either, but he doesn't catch on to Azriel's subtleties. He doesn't realize that Azriel wants Burger Pants to go with him. So Azriel pressures him for an answer.
Maybe this was a mistake after all. Well, what do you think?
Nah, you're too good for this hometown, Azzy. Maybe you should start thinking about what's going to be best for yourself. Your mom can't always follow you all the way to college, right?
Az sighed and looked down at his trembling hands. I love my home, and my friends, and my family. I just feel trapped. I've got a bit of a headache suddenly. Why don't you just do your thing while I get some water, all right?
So Burger Pants tries the best that he possibly can to comfort Azriel, but once again, this is another soft rejection by Burger Pants. Burger Pants doesn't understand him, doesn't understand what he's saying, and Burger Pants is not interested in going with him, which is finally the last straw for Azriel. So Azriel excuses himself from the situation pretty much, but Azriel hasn't given up his plan. He does not want to leave this world without his crush and childhood friend, his confidant, a person who's really very important to him. So he's not going to give up this thought just yet. There are other ways to bring Burger Pants with him. And with these thoughts, Azriel decides this would probably be a lot easier not sober. So Azriel goes to his truck and self-medicates pretty much to make this situation a little bit easier on himself. If he just happens to come back and catch Burger Pants in the middle of doing whatever he's doing, you know, that's just a little bit of a bonus. So that's fine. But we see that when Burger Pants is left alone, he doesn't immediately distract himself like he had planned earlier. He took Azriel seriously, and he's thinking about these issues that Azriel brought up. Burger Pants has very latent thinking. It's just getting caught up with him right now, just how big of a deal this is to Azriel. Yeah, Burger Pants is very sympathetic, but all of this comes a little bit too late. Burger Pants assumes that Azriel has already left, and he's formulating these thoughts so that he has something to tell Azzy tomorrow whenever he calls him. Azriel means a great big deal to Burger Pants as well. That is his best friend, the one person that he can really rely upon, and he doesn't want anything to happen to that relationship. And with the thoughts of Burger Pants being a bad friend in this situation, he finally decides that he needs to distract himself, because he does not want to think about how he's a bad friend. But even then, he's not really paying attention to what's going on. He's still thinking about that situation. Still thinking about all the issues that Azriel was going through. And of course, trying to understand him. Why Azriel was so pissed off in that moment.
Was that just now a cry for help that went on deaf ears? Did he let his friend down? Maybe he should have tried to stop him in the door. No way, Azriel zoomed out there faster than the naked eye. If Burger Pants tried to block the exit, he would have been crushed to death. Twice. Somehow that guy was pretty miffed.
Burger Pants realized that Azriel was pissed off, even though Azriel didn't have any indicators that he should be mad at this moment. Burger Pants could intuit that something he did upset Azriel. And around this time, in the midst of Burger Pants' thoughts, Azriel returns, but he could kind of read what Burger Pants is thinking, and Burger Pants is thinking pretty much the stuff that they were discussing earlier in a lot more depth. So it's not like Burger Pants was ignoring him, like he initially thought, and Burger Pants didn't really give up on Azriel. Burger Pants kind of took things to heart, and now he's mulling things over. So Azriel kind of changes his tactics here for a little bit, and wants to see just how much this guy cares for him.
Monsters just age slower than humans for some reason? Okay, sure. Why not? I disagree personally. I mean, I went to great lengths previously to in fact argue against the idea that Undertale monsters at least age differently than humans, because, you know, Burger Pants himself points out that he's 19 years old, acting like a 19-year-old human, so... But I'll, you know, this is fine. Boss monster lore. Oh, it's boss monsters. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, sorry about this. I don't know what video that is. I'm sorry. I've watched very, very few Deltarune videos. I don't know about the actual ages of monsters and what the fanon lore is on boss monsters. I made up my own thing for this fic based off some waterfall dialogue in Undertale. So if I am incredibly off base here, it's because I am disconnected with the fandom. I was not trying to be offensive. That's the thing, is I'm not trying really to be canon here, and I'm not saying that this is what I think is actually going on in the games. And I realize that can be a little bit frustrating, because I do draw from a lot of events that happen in the games with this story, but I twist them. I make everything seem a little bit off from what they were originally in Deltarune. I am drawing from the freedom that Umris had, where Umris Birdley and Umris Susie had almost nothing to do with their Deltarune selves.
How do humans grow to be? Admittedly, all he knew about them was what had printed in his old textbooks and anime. Before the tape ended, Azriel opened the door to Burger Pants' room and stood hunched in the threshold, appearing in much worse condition than he did when he stormed out moments before.
So yes, Azriel is listening to Burger Pants' thoughts, and decides he is going to change up tactics, see how much this guy actually cares for him. So he swings open the door, and he acts all frail and feeble, like something really bad had happened to him, and immediately this gets a reaction from Burger Pants.
But whatever happened to Az, it obviously wasn't good, right? It looked like he'd been hit by a truck. I feel like I've been run over by a truck, Azriel groaned, reaching out to the party inside. Burger Pants didn't hesitate for long.
And we get the first clue that Azriel can actually read Burger Pants' thoughts. And he reaches out, seeing if Burger Pants was willing to help him, which of course he is. Nothing has really changed from back in the old days. So of course, Burger Pants is actually very concerned and starts questioning Azriel, and thinks that whatever happened is so serious that he's willing to get Azriel's parents involved, which is not something that Azriel wants to do. He kind of wants to keep this contained, so that he could continue to be babied by Burger Pants.
Don't even mention it, D-boy. I didn't leave your house. I was in the kitchen the whole time. Didn't I tell you I was getting something to drink? Burger Pants understood his intentions and helped them onto the sofa. Azriel still favored being slightly doubled over, so whatever was wrong, he was most likely uncomfortable. But not uncomfortable enough to ask for help.
So Azriel's trying to seem pitiful in all of this, but he slips and calls Burger Pants a D-boy, which distracts Burger Pants, and he immediately gets curious about that. What's up with this weird-ass nickname?
To Burger Pants, this revelation was more mind-blowing than whatever Asriel had clued him in on tonight. Az remembered his given name, and remembered what he was called when he was first trying to get chummy with the guy. So it wasn't random after all. He thought Asriel was making up some anime reference, or more likely calling him a bad name. At least he seemed to use it like an insult.
This name is kind of an in-joke with Azriel. It has quite a few meanings, and Azriel gets into a couple of them with Burger Pants. But also, D is slang for something a little bit inappropriate, and ever since they were teenagers, there were some rumors about things that Azriel was a little bit curious about, and that curiosity got placed onto Burger Pants. And that definitely helped, create the name, I'll just say. But of course, that is just for him to know. That is not for anybody else to know. What he shares with Burger Pants is a sentimental reason, which works. The most important thing to Burger Pants isn't all of the drama that they went through earlier. It's that Azriel liked him enough to remember his name, that he actually means something to Azriel, which kinda boosts his ego a little bit. They kinda have a rocky relationship now, but of course it didn't always used to be like that, and Azriel still feels the same way about him that they did when they were still in school.
It also sounds like D-bag, and you sound like a douchebag when you say bud so condescendingly.
No, Az, how could I be so misunderstood? Chris is the little buddy, so you're the bigger buddy. The bud, like the pal crossed with a sprouting flower.
Azriel narrowed his eyes. I thought Chris is squirt to you. If they're squirt, then am I fountain?
But then Azriel pops his little bubble by making the complaint about the nickname that Burger Pants gave to him, which is not nearly as sentimental as Azriel would like, and it can also kind of be taken as a drug pun, so Azriel is definitely not flattered by this nickname, but the ways that Burger Pants calls him this name, it's usually in a condescending light, and we see that quite a lot. Burger Pants doesn't completely phase out using this throughout the fic. He stops, but in moments of duress or a high emotional state, he will still call out Bud to Azriel.
If they're a squirt, it's more like a kitchen sink. The whole package. You got it all contained.
Burger Pants doesn't like being questioned by this, and wants to make sure that he's not misunderstood, that Azriel means something to him as well, so he goes off on this little tangent. He didn't mean for this to be offensive. And Azriel is a bit influenced right now, so he kind of slips his guard and confesses to knowing something that Burger Pants, up until this point, has only thought about, which of course catches Burger Pants off guard and fuels him to rationalize things further so that he doesn't get in trouble with Azriel, so that Azriel doesn't think less of him.
The smile flashed at him seemed so bright it was sparkling, like he was beside himself with pride. In what world, what in the world kind of mischief could he have caused in such little time? He didn't actually crash his dad's truck, did he? When I went to the kitchen, your mom gave me some chocolate milk.
Wait, my mom gave you chocolate milk? Is she back from work already? Furthermore, did we even have chocolate milk?
Since we've got all this care and attention now, Azriel intends to milk it for as much as he possibly can, and comes up with this scheme, because he is under a heavy influence, and he can't exactly hide it, so he's going to see how Burger Pants reacts to this, and he starts out pretty tame, by making it seem like Burger Pants' mom offered him a drink, but he says it in a way that's so innocent that Burger Pants literally thinks that Azriel is talking about chocolate milk, even though Burger Pants clearly knows that is not something that they drink in this household. The only thing close to that in their house would be Burger Pants' mom's stash of Mississippi Mudslide. But Burger Pants doesn't connect two and two.
She also gave me some brownies. They were delicious. Absolutely not. If there was one thing Burger Pants' mom couldn't do to save her life, it was cook. She definitely couldn't bake. How did she get the brownies? What kind of brownies did she give you, Azriel?
But Azriel tries to take it one step further and kind of hint at things so that Burger Pants would be concerned for him. And Burger Pants does find this very suspicious because he knows that his mom is not the kind that would be baking brownies, But because Azriel phrased it in this way, he believes whatever Azriel is saying at face value, not getting any of the subtleties that Azriel is trying to drop whatsoever.
I told her I wasn't feeling well, and she gave me some medicine she said would take the edge off. I think it just made me feel funny instead. But she was so nice for helping me, I don't want her to feel bad that it didn't work.
So Azriel tries to make it as clear-cut as he possibly can.
How would this picture reverse so quickly? Azriel was now all smiles and rosy cheeks while Burger Pants was hunched over, contemplating his life. He couldn't tell what was real and what was fake. But the fact of the matter was, whatever happened to Azriel wasn't a small thing.
Finally, Burger Pants gets it. So Burger Pants kind of has this existential crisis and sits right down next to Azriel, closing the distance between them. Which, of course, all this concern for him, and their now close proximity, this makes Azriel extremely very happy.
Unlike with Azriel's little slump earlier, Burger Pants didn't have the luxury of awkward silence. As soon as he noticed it was so hard to concentrate that he couldn't hear himself think, he realized why. It was that tape he'd put in earlier. That Axters was screaming so loudly. And if his mom was home, there was no way she couldn't hear it, right? He'd better turn it down.
Azriel's trying to read Burger Pants' thoughts, and Burger Pants absolutely cannot concentrate with the tape that's going on in the background. And instead of thinking about how this is going to make Azriel uncomfortable, since Burger Pants knows that this does make Azriel uncomfortable, he's thinking about what his mom is going to think about the noise, which kind of pisses Azriel off a little bit.
Is it because I'm here? Don't worry, you can continue to watch your silly videos if you want, Azriel chimed in. And I promise not to tell you when your dad records porn off the descrambled fuzzy network.
So Burger Pants is completely scrambling to find this remote to turn down the sound, and that's when Azriel questions him about it. But then Azriel kind of twists the knife a little bit, kind of hinting about his distaste for this whole thing. About how he knows that Burger Pants' dad didn't leave him these VHSs. It's obviously something that Burger Pants had recorded, and I should probably bring that up.
What the fuck is the scrambled porn channel?
Back in the 90s and early 2000s, the internet wasn't such a big thing, so a lot of people watched television instead, and that's where a lot of people got their porn. They watched it on these pay-per-view channels. And a pay-per-view channel does exactly what it sounds like. You would pay with a credit card to watch a certain movie or a certain feature. And American TV has this certain code, possibly even the Hays Code, I'm not sure, where certain subjects could not be shown on air in the hours in which children would be awake. So the curfew was something like 10 or 11 p.m. After that time period, the pay-per-view channel would change programming to become pretty much a preview channel. It was just the porn that they already had, except the picture was scrambled and the audio was very fuzzy, so you couldn't really tell what was going on, but it was just enough to pique a customer's interest. And that is what I am referencing here, this very 90s, early 2000s thing that specifically happened in America. I did not take that into consideration when I was writing the fic. I was trying to make this already awkward situation even more humiliating for Burger Pants, so that Burger Pants would have a bigger reaction.
What was the detail Azriel casually harpooned through his head right now? The descrambled porn channel? Does Az know about such a thing? Has he unscrambled it himself?
This completely rubs Burger Pants the wrong way, and he immediately gets all up in arms.
It's kind of pathetic, don't you think? Do you ever imagine how the actress feels having to scream out cheesy lines like that?
And Azriel doesn't quite understand Burger Pants' obsession with porn. Azriel does not sexually objectify these women on screen. What he sees is this poor, tired, and worn-out girl just trying to make a living by doing this absolutely degrading job. He sees them as a person and not an object, so he can't really relate to Burger Pants' mindset about this. And so he kind of voices this thought, like, how are you able to watch this and not feel bad for her? And that's when Azriel gets the idea, if he's objectifying these women, then maybe he'll objectify him in the same way. So that's when Azriel kind of gives into this idea and tests the waters by screaming out Burger Pants' name to see how much of a reaction this will have.
Burger Pants practically jumped out of his skin at the call of his name and was shell-shocked for a good couple seconds. He swallowed hard. What was that voice?
Azriel has a few unique properties with his voice, which he wasn't exactly thinking about when he decided to do this thing. And this is kind of the first time that he's used this on Burger Pants, so Burger Pants is absolutely completely stunned when this happens. It definitely has an effect on Burger Pants, which Burger Pants does not like. But because Burger Pants had this strong reaction, Azriel wants to run with this now. Azriel wants to see if he can finally get Burger Pants to join him in a stupid activity so that they can bond. Sure, Azriel isn't into the porn, but there's some way that he can work in both of their interests here.
Azriel chuckled and nudged him playfully. You're an actor too, right? Why don't you join in?
So he asks Burger Pants to play along, but to Burger Pants, this is just another backhanded compliment. Like, Azriel looks down on what is happening, and Azriel is asking him to further humiliate himself, like he's making fun of him and his hobbies. I tried to word all of this so that it was blatantly obvious that the two of them were pretty much separated, nobody was touching, nothing sexual was actually going on in the scene. This was just about the awkward situation. The whole vibe in the stream was completely different. Even this, the porn just being used as something awkward, it was still deemed a little bit risky. It still had this taboo air around it, which I was not expecting. Again, I have grown up where porn is something that is used as the butt of a joke. It's not really this huge, big taboo. There's no Puritan pearl clutching about it. Porn exists, and it's not necessarily sexualized. It's just something that people laugh about, kind of like butts. That's what I could say about American media is butts. Yes, they can be sexual and they can be used to sexualize a person, but also kids are going to laugh at the butts, you know? It's not necessarily this sexualized thing, it's also this comedy thing. This is just this funny, awkward little moment for me, not knowing how the rest of the audience is going to take this. I was absolutely mortified when this scene came up, and this is the one that I was really dreading. I did not want to be hated by everybody for bringing this up, especially now that I knew just how weird everybody found it.
The only reason they haven't hooked up yet is because Azriel wasn't trying. He took a bite of the weed brownies and now he's like, fucking all systems engage, fuck that cat.
I really wish that was the story that I wrote. That sounds beautiful. And it's, not quite far from what does happen, except this Azriel is not the kind to just go for it, regardless of how fucked up he is right now, and he really is pretty fucked up right now. But he pretty much waits for Burger Pants to make that first move, because he doesn't want to destroy what they have between them. But he is very interested in Burger Pants physically, for sure, he is definitely interested. The problem is, he doesn't know how to communicate with Burger Pants very effectively. We see that he is pretty smooth when he goes to hit on Burger Pants, but that completely flies over his head, even blatantly saying, "Who do I like more between you and who?" Burger Pants doesn't see this as a confession. Burger Pants just sees this as Azriel misunderstanding what he was talking about. Burger Pants needs things to be said extremely directly, which we'll see a little bit further on. So Burger Pants is completely humilified at this point, and gets up and ejects the tape so that this whole awkward misunderstanding will stop. But it does not stop here. Azriel is very interested in Burger Pants' reaction, and wants to see just how far he can push things. Because to Azriel, Burger Pants ejected this tape not for his own comfort. Like earlier, this was just a move so that his not-present mom wouldn't hear and judge Burger Pants. So he decides to make him sweat a little bit by making even more noise, getting up and jumping on the couch, which, makes a little bit of a suggestive noise, accompanied, of course, by Azriel's fake moaning. And Burger Pants at first has a little bit of concern for Azriel, like something is really wrong with Azriel. So that's when he tries to coax him down, thinking that this is a little bit dangerous for him, and that they should calm down and sit on the couch and just wait this out.
Nancy, buddy, what are you doing? Get down, yeah? I turned it off like you wanted, so let's sit down and take a breather, okay?
Burger Pants reached out to help him down, but that seemed to make the guy more determined. He switched over to the other seat. You do it too, it'll be fun together.
But if Azriel gives in right now, he forfeits this opportunity to get a rise of Burger Pants. So he gets out of Burger Pants' grasp, and once again, pleads for him to come join him, so that they could have fun together, like they did when they were little kids. Azriel keeps on using his voice, trying to get a reaction out of Burger Pants, and the only thing that it's doing is really stirring that guy up and making him get irritated, because he does not want to feel this way right now. He does not like this sensation, so he gets really frustrated, and he tries to threaten Azriel by saying that his mom is going to tell Toriel, and Toriel will find out about this, trying to get Azriel to back down a little bit. But, that just makes Azriel dig in his heels, because once again, Burger Pants isn't thinking about Azriel, Burger Pants is thinking about how his mom will view this. So all these attempts so far, Azriel doesn't think he's getting through to Burger Pants, so he pushes just a little bit further, getting a little bit more explicit. Trying to get these thoughts into Burger Pants' head, trying to play into Burger Pants' fantasies, but this is not working out at all.
You've tricked me into reading some shit on stream.
I'm so sorry, I did not think you were going to read this on stream.
Burger Pants, in turn, had run out of patience and lunged toward Azriel, trying to muffle the filthy sounds coming out of his mouth.
Burger Pants has completely had enough. This was the straw that broke the camel's back, and he decides to physically attack Azriel using his hands to cover Azriel's mouth to muffle out his voice, to make this awkward stimulation stop. Azriel doesn't play into this, and just playfully, falls back onto the sofa. But this doesn't work out too well, because he accidentally kicks Burger Pants, and Burger Pants goes flying back onto the floor, making this loud thud whenever he lands. And so we see this situation kind of reverse, because Burger Pants was unwilling to join Azriel in making these moans of pleasure. They are now on the floor, making groans out in pain. And once again, Burger Pants is worrying about his mom and how his mom perceives this.
How messed up could this day get? How is that not over already? All Burger Pants wanted to do was come home and de-stress since way earlier that afternoon. But now that interview didn't even feel like a first course.
So now, Burger Pants is internally lamenting about this whole situation that has happened, and how this is the worst night ever. He cannot believe the mess that he had gotten himself into, not even realizing that the night is not over yet. And in this monologue, we can kind of see how Burger Pants' mental state is really deteriorating at this point. He's not quite all there. His mind is going off on tangents.
After sitting there in contemplation for a while, the frustration he felt earlier subsided. Honestly, he wasn't sure why he got so swept up in it. Why did he ever care about what his mother thought of him anyway? Wasn't Az more important?
You doing okay, Az?
He breathed meekly, daring not try to move his body in fear of the pain that would most likely shoot through him when he did. I guess. Why didn't you play along? You used to be way less of a prude.
And in his thinking, his thoughts kind of come back around to Azriel, and how he can't believe that he actually got that upset with Azriel over something extremely stupid. So that's when he comes back around, and instead of thinking about the humiliation he's faced, he kind of checks up on Azriel and see how Azriel's doing, because he knows that something's up with Azriel. He's not sure what, but something's going on with Azriel, and he wasn't exactly being the most supportive friend earlier, so he kind of has a change of heart and wants to see how Azriel is doing. Azriel is just laying there and pouting. he and Burger Pants don't have the same relationship that they had when they were children. Ever since they started growing up, their dynamic changed. Burger Pants' interests kind of put a wedge between them. Azriel's kind of thinking about that, and reading a little bit of Burger Pants' thoughts, and contemplating how they got to this point.
I was just trying to save you from getting yourself in trouble. Why don't you be good for a while and wait it out?
Azriel scoffed. Your mom doesn't come home this early. Didn't you already know that?
And once again, Burger Pants brings up his mom and tries to frame what he did as beneficial to both parties, which Azriel completely shuts down. Burger Pants already knows that his mom gets off late, and there's no way in hell that she would be back home this early. But Burger Pants had actually trusted whatever Azriel said as true, and he gets a little bit offended by this. He doesn't want to believe that Azriel would lie to him. And this bothers him enough that he actually voices this out to Azriel.
You lied. Of course, I should have known. I should never trust you, is that right? I'm a fool for believing?
I think I've proven myself pretty trustworthy. I can't help if you're gullible and fall for every prank.
Usually he keeps these kind of complaints to himself, but he actually wants an answer from Azriel this time. So Burger Pants, too, is kind of feeling like things have changed between them. And that's when Azriel decides to bring this topic up.
You've always used to say things like, us weenies have to stick together. And I always thought it was stupid. If you think we're both weenies, why should we stick together? Sometimes, though, it's not such a bad idea, sticking to you.
So Azriel tries to broach this topic about how, when they were kids, they used to always stick together, but then he kind of sneakily words it in such a way to see how Burger Pants will process these thoughts. Burger Pants kind of notices what Azriel's doing, but Burger Pants just kind of thinks this is an innocent slip of the memory, and doesn't think too much into the wording. Even up to this point, Burger Pants does not have any dirty thoughts in his mind regarding Azriel. And Burger Pants' thoughts are just a mess, going off on these tangents about how hungry he is.
You were really cute back then, you know? You'd follow me anywhere. You'd follow me anywhere like a lost lamb. I wondered why things changed.
Azriel's just a little bit disappointed in thinking about how things have changed, and just how cute Burger Pants used to be, clinging to him and following him everywhere, and Azriel being the center of his world, and how that all started to change whenever they became teenagers, and Burger Pants started shifting his focus more towards girls. And in the middle of Azriel confessing all this, Burger Pants is still going off in his own thoughts because he got hung up on the part where Azriel called him cute. And Burger Pants is completely getting wrapped up in all these tangents and all these thoughts that are leading him further and further away from what's happening, and he kind of realizes that Azriel is speaking and he's not paying attention to what Azriel's saying. And he kind of comes back in the part where Azriel is questioning him about his interest in Azriel's relationship with their other friends. And he brings up the topic of Bratty, trying to see just how much this piques Burger Pants' interests, just so he can shatter his preconceptions and tell him just how much he dislikes her.
She actually asked me to kiss her. I leaned up close to her, toying with her expectations, and then I sarcastically told her to bite me. I didn't think she would actually would, but I guess she didn't like being messed around with, or maybe it was because we were in the middle of Truth or Dare. She definitely won the game. I always felt she was, how do I put it? Wrapped in the story, Burger Pants quickly responded.
Bold, forward, cute.
Superficial, and pushy, and obnoxious. But you can't choose your friends and neighbors, right? It's best for everyone to get along, even if they're far from perfect.
This incident with Bratty led child Azriel to think back on the events of Undertale, how Undertale Azriel kept getting stabbed, and that's what kind of led him into realizing that these visions that he'd seen since he was a child was actually from a past life. And of course, this brings up the topic of Chris, because Azriel realizes that Chris was the one who was stabbing him. Once we knock down the preconception that Azriel isn't interested in Bratty, Azrael goes on to further solidify that he's not really interested in Chris either. But Burger Pants isn't reading too much into this. In fact, he kind of gets the opposite idea on both ends. So Azrael's going through all these details about what exactly happened with Brady, and making sure that Burger Pants knows that she was the aggressor in all this, and that he was looking down on her the whole time. He was not interested at all. He was not even slightly interested. And he completely reveals all of his true thoughts on her, how he thinks that she's obnoxious and she's a manipulator, and how she's using the situation for clout. Which, Azrael doesn't discuss these topics with other people. He doesn't ever really get to state his true opinions. He's always the peacemaker in most situations, and he kind of built this persona for himself that he's trapped in. He can't possibly tell people what's actually on his mind in fear of hurting them. So this is kind of a catharsis for Azrael for spilling out these true thoughts, and Burger Pants can sense the joy that Azrael is getting from pushing these people down, as he puts in his own words.
There was that signature smile that had just made its guest star appearance many times today. Why did Az always look like he was enjoying it when he knocked people down a peg? Was he really that happy when he could finally express his true opinion? And what about that "you can't choose your friends" bit? Was that also a backhanded compliment? Well, he's right. They couldn't all be winners, could they? Some of them were weenies, apparently.
Burger Pants takes this a little bit, personally. If Azrael has these thoughts about one of their close friends and neighbors, then of course Azrael might have these same thoughts about him. Because in Burger Pants' mind, he is just this hapless loser, and Brady is the accessible hot chick. And he kind of thinks about just how much he means to Azrael, which couldn't be a lot, because before Burger Pants, Azrael had another childhood friend, and at this moment, Burger Pants isn't quite sure who that was. He just has this vague thought in the back of his mind. This is when Azrael tries to reveal the whole past life thing, but he phrases this so vaguely that it's hard to parse out what he means.
When she bit me, I could feel her sharp fangs pierce through my skin, through my flesh. One by one as her jaw clamped down. It was like getting stabbed by a knife in rapid succession. I wasn't so much scared as I was stunned. For some reason, it was kind of nostalgic, almost comforting. I couldn't shake the feeling.
So Burger Pants thinks that Azrael's confessing to being a masochist, to enjoying having Brady bite down on him. And this is where the atmosphere starts to change. Azrael finally divulging the secrets about his past life, which Burger Pants isn't catching on to any of that, but that's what Azrael's doing. Which reminds him of why he's here today. He is here to take Burger Pants with him by whatever means possible, so he starts gearing himself up for this, which Burger Pants can feel. Burger Pants can feel that the aura is starting to become a little bit threatening, and he's not quite sure why he's having these emotions. And that's when Azrael delves a little bit deeper into what happened with Chris. Again, we are leading further into the whole thing with past lives. And what's the best way to transition from here is going from when he met back up with Chris and had these feelings of familiarity. So he starts telling the story.
You found your mom with them and took him to the hospital, right?
Not immediately. Before I did, it was just me and them, isolated in the woods. I went up to them with the intention of helping them, but they shrank back in fear. They were scared of me, absolutely terror-stricken.
And it seems innocent enough. It seems like the same old thing that Burger Pants already knows. So Burger Pants doesn't know why Azrael is bringing this old story back up, and he's not quite sure what the relationship between these two is still. But he knows that Azrael is under some kind of influence. Something's wrong with Azrael. So he decides to just let him talk. Whatever, let him get it out of his system. The sooner he gets finished with his little dialogue, the sooner we can end this and just get some sleep.
Yeah, we all know how precious you were back then, and how traumatized your sibling was before they became part of the family. Let it all out. I've come this far, I might as well hear everything before you drift off to sleep. Go on, I'm all ears.
he thought bitterly, trying to judge just how foggy Az's judgment was, if at all.
Which will immediately bite him in the ass. And that's when Azriel tells him point blank that when he first ran into Chris, he had feelings of danger. Both of them felt a sense of threat from each other, and for a brief moment, he was contemplating killing Chris right then and there, which Burger Pants wasn't expecting it to go in this direction at all. He thought this was going to be the same cute, quaint little story about him finding his sibling. He didn't know that Azriel was actually contemplating harming Chris, and he contemplates back to just how scary Azriel could be. So he kind of internally panics. Did Azriel actually harm Chris back then?
This couldn't be good, Azriel. What did you do? What the hell did you do? No, don't tell me. I'm an innocent man. I don't know your secrets. I don't want to know. Please.
Just questioning how much he knows about Azriel. Just what's going through Azriel's mind. Because right now he can kind of feel that threatening aura, and for Azriel to be confessing this is putting him in a dangerous situation as well.
Even though I'd been pushed around by people stronger than myself, when the tables were turned, I had no problem enjoying the rush, but I didn't actually want to hurt them. I didn't intend to do anything. I told myself that if they were really scared, then they would just run away.
So Azriel kind of backs off a little bit, feeling just how worried Burger Pants is getting, and calms him down. He didn't actually intend to harm Chris. This is just a thought that came through his mind because he felt this familiarity. He felt that he knew Chris was a threat. And in this moment of hesitation and waiting for Chris to make the first move, Chris does make the first move and decides to bite down on him. And this was the pureness that Azriel was talking about earlier. Chris just kind of does whatever Chris wants to, and that's the only thought that was in Chris's mind at the time, and that's exactly what Chris did, regardless of how desperate and stupid this move was. And that's when Azriel started feeling a little bit of pity towards them, and got a little bit of interest in Chris, and decided that he didn't actually want his mom to find out about them, because he thought that, Toriel would bring them back into the human world. But of course, that's not how things happened, so Chris did get to live in the Streamer household. But it didn't exactly work out the way that little Azriel thought it would. Chris is a person, and Chris has a lot of trauma, so it wasn't like this was a cute little kitten that he picked up off the street. Chris was a little bit of a handful. Azriel wasn't exactly happy with the way things turned out. And Azriel wants to keep talking about this subject, but Burger Pants is overwhelmed, and Burger Pants is showing signs of being physically overwhelmed. He's sitting there holding his head in his hands, not being able to process all the new information that's coming towards him. So Azriel kind of checks up on him a little bit, trying to see what Burger Pants is thinking. And of course, Burger Pants is extremely honest inside his head. He absolutely did not want this. He does not want to be here. He does not want to be having these discussions. He does not like the vibe right now. He is scared out of his mind. He's not sure what to do. He's not sure even who his friend is anymore. And he has all of these thoughts when he'd already had the worst day that he could possibly have. But that's not how he replies to Azriel.
Who wouldn't want to know? Fascinating stuff, really. So you and little buddy are connected by mutual feelings of vulnerability, right? And knew what it was like to be a small guy in a world full of bigger guys, so you put yourself in their shoes. It's not so strange after all, right? We're drawn to those we most resemble deep down. Usually. Maybe we're also drawn to people we admire or want to be like.
So he's trying to get Azriel off his back, calm him down a little bit, get this atmosphere to chill out. But what he says right here strikes a chord with Azriel, because it seems like Burger Pants is willing to put up with him, even when Burger Pants desperately doesn't want to, even when he feels threatened, even though he's not forced to. At any point he can tell Azriel to leave, but he never does. Even though Burger Pants isn't quite thinking about what he's saying, this kinda hits a chord with Azriel, and this causes Azriel to think Burger Pants isn't aware of anything that's really going on, but somehow Burger Pants has this intuition where he says the right things sometimes. He says the most comforting things. He says the things that Azriel really wants to hear, or really needs to hear in that moment, which causes Azriel to reconsider just how much Burger Pants actually means to him, why he likes Burger Pants in the first place. Just like with the drawing game earlier, Burger Pants had no idea that Azriel was drawing out all these traumas that he lived out in that past life as Flowey. Burger Pants thought that this was just some kind of game to draw the ickiest things that he possibly could, and Burger Pants was all for it. And by making this a bonding activity, he helped Azriel through his trauma. He was there for him when this would be such an uncomfortable topic for anyone else to tackle. So Burger Pants was really there for him, and did and said just the right things. So Azriel kind of thinks about what his plan was and reconsiders, because if he brings Burger Pants with him by force, then that could make Burger Pants hate him. And this little relationship that they have right now, where they're on the cusp between distant and close, it's a lot better than being hated by the only person that you can truly be yourself around. And yes, Burger Pants was just bullshitting because he was uncomfortable and wanted to de-escalate the situation. So Azriel has to rethink his plans, pretty much rethink what he should do.
Either way, it was good to have Mr. Hyde back. Wait, was Dr. Jekyll the good one? Why would they name the good one Jackal and the vicious one Mr. Hyde?
And this whole, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, one thing that I remembered about Umris was that it used a lot of classic literature to try and sound smart, but a lot of those classics were taught in public high school, so they weren't exactly the most intellectual of literature. But, by the way that they were described, you would think that this was some kind of philosophical thing, like the reader was a lot smarter for having read them, and I wanted to poke fun at that. I kind of wanted to use folk tales and literature to seem stupid, like Burger Pants doesn't understand the star-crossed lovers in Romeo and Juliet. He compares something stupid to folk tales like Little Red Riding Hood and, Mary Had a Little Lamb. Now he's going into Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde to express how it parallels to Azriel's switch in demeanor. He doesn't exactly remember which one is Dr. Jekyll and which one is Mr. Hyde, and I set up here that the way most people in America pronounce Jekyll is Jackal here. That's why we have a Jackal and Mr. Hyde. So we know the pronunciation for when we get to the pun of turning the jackal off. And Burger Pants just kind of makes this stupid mess of thoughts so much that he immediately dismisses it himself because he is confusing himself in this metaphor.
As he's less scary and seemingly tuckered out. Looks like the main events are all over. Maybe it was time to finally settle down for the evening.
Yeah, go ahead, make yourself comfortable. You'll feel better in the morning, I think.
He completely dismisses these thoughts and tries to get back on the topic at hand. Azriel does not have that scary aura anymore, and it seems like he's pretty tired, and Burger Pants is definitely tired, so this would be a great time to transition to them settling down for the evening, get Azriel settled in, then he can finally get peace and settle in himself, and everything's gonna be fine from here on out. So that's exactly what he's trying to do. He can't leave Azriel in this state. He's still unsure of what state Azriel exactly is in. He's trying to get Azriel to settle down, which of course means letting him stay over for the night. Burger Pants, despite everything, still trusts Azriel in the same room with him, which is amazing to Azriel because Azriel knows of what intentions he had with Burger Pants just moments before, and Burger Pants kind of felt that too, kind of felt this threatening aura from moments before, but still had that much trust in him, and still wanted to take care of him. So that gives Azriel a little bit of hope for the future, and he decides to push and see how far he can take this.
Just as Burger Pants thought he would finally be reprieved, Azrael slid off the couch and knelt next to him, almost asking for help.
Hey, bud, what's up? You not feeling good? You need to go to the hospital after all?
Burger Pants is not threatened by Azrael getting closer to him.
In a way, you're actually pretty naive, aren't you? You're really going to let me spend the night here?
If you can't walk and don't want your parents to know, then sure. I mean, if you wanted to be honest, I know it's not the best condition to...
Azrael suddenly scooted closer, as if the rambling going on in the background was of no consequence to him.
And when Azrael kind of confronts him, Burger Pants is obviously a little bit nervous and starts backpedaling really quickly. But it's not like he's moving away or anything. So Azrael decides, move forward with this, see just how far he can possibly go.
Do you know what I always liked about you? Liked? As in the past tense, not anymore? Hey, what was with a sinister vibe?
Well, we get along quite well, don't we, Azzy? It's like you and I are on the same wavelength, definitely.
And he starts trying to confess to Burger Pants. He starts trying to tell Burger Pants exactly what it is that he likes so much about him. Burger Pants has no idea what's going on. He hears this past tense, liked, you know what I liked about you, and is thinking, oh shit, this must mean somehow our relationship changed, that he felt one way before and no longer feels that way. So this could possibly be a threat or a confrontation, both of which Burger Pants does not want right now. Once again, he tries to talk his way out of this situation and ingratiate himself to Azrael, kind of reminding him of how good of a relationship they have. But Azrael is hearing none of that bullshit. He immediately cuts him off.
Azrael's hand overlapped his and grasped it firmly, pulling it toward himself. Burger Pants' eyes instinctively drew downward. The cold sweat on his neck came back along with goosebumps. What was this development?
And makes the first physical contact, which is simply just taking his hand. And Burger Pants allows this and doesn't immediately retaliate. This only confuses Burger Pants even further. He thought that everything was going to stop for the night. He was ready to settle down. He had his heart set on that being the last outburst of the evening, and suddenly things took a turn once again. And his brain hasn't quite caught up yet, so everything's extremely confusing to him right now.
There is no wavelength, don't you know? I can read your thoughts. Whatever you have to say, it's written clearly on your face. You can't hide anything from me.
And that's when Azrael confesses to him, once again, that he really can read Burger Pants' thoughts. As in, this is a skill that he has, and has always been able to do. This confrontation is very exciting to Azrael. Azrael finally thinks that he has hopes, that he could possibly get through to Burger Pants, so he is shooting his shot, trying to push him as far as he possibly can. It's now or never. You've got to spill all your secrets, see how this guy reacts, and if it's not in a favorable way, you can always quickly remedy this situation in his confusion, right? So Azrael is definitely readying himself, and Burger Pants can kind of feel that vibe coming back.
The accent changed just there. Did you notice the accent changed for some reason?
I love that change in accent. I love it. So of course, Burger Pants still feels threatened, and in his monologue, he is thinking about how threatened he feels, and how he wants to make amends before their fighting even starts, and Azrael can see all this. And that's when Azrael spills all of his secrets. He decides to just go for it, tell this guy about his past life, see how he reacts to this.
Do you ever have dreams of a past life, where everything around you is different, but everyone is the same? And when someone important is nearby, you feel yourself trembling from somewhere deep inside, like your soul can somehow reach out and touch them.
Azrael kinda tests the waters, and tries to see if any of this is resonating with Burger Pants, if perhaps, possibly, maybe, Burger Pants also feels this way too. Obviously, Burger Pants has no clue what Azrael is talking about, so Burger Pants doesn't really have memories of that past life, which is pretty much what Azrael figured anyway.
My soul won't let me forget. I can't ignore them, and I think Chris experiences it too. We knew each other before.
Azriel kind of gets emotionally caught up in this, finally being able to tell somebody his secret. Because Azriel's still kind of afraid of that past life. He still has the guilt and the trauma. He doesn't really want to delve into that too much himself. So he just kind of keeps it on topic about how he and Chris knew each other in that past life, and how he feels like Chris and him should not coexist in a world together, because something catastrophic is going to happen. Burger Pants has a whole mess of thoughts concerning this, right? But the things that Burger Pants thinks and the things that he says are two different things.
But you don't hate them at all, right? That's why you feel so complicated toward the issue. You don't want to dislike your precious kid sibling, but you can't get along easily either. Not because you come from two different worlds, but because you fear you'll be their undoing.
What he thinks is a lot more agreeable to Azriel than what Burger Pants winds up actually saying.
You only live once. Your matters should be chosen by you alone. How you can truly live if you're busy worrying about someone else. And if something goes wrong in the future, you can always fix it when the time comes.
So yeah, here he is once again, trying to talk his way out of this situation. And now that Azriel's being a little bit threatening, being a little bit more forthright, he's trying to subtly take his hand back, not like snatching his hand back, trying to see if Azriel will give way to his feeling, so he could feel a little bit more comfortable having that distance between them, just in case anything does wind up happening. Because again, Burger Pants is a little bit threatened by this relationship that Azriel has with Chris. To him, they are very close, and with the events from earlier, it's a little bit suspicious as well. And whether he knows it or not, he really wants Azriel's approval. That is his best friend. That is the one guy that he trusts in this world. Of course he wants to be top dog in Azriel's heart. In Burger Pants trying to skirt around these issues, it only fuels Azriel to get more into the heart of the matter. So first he corrects Burger Pants that, no, it's not just Chris, it's almost everybody in Hometown.
I mean that. I feel connected to everyone somehow, even if it's faint. That's how I know what makes them happy, what their life goals are, what they're thinking. I'm connected with them spiritually, but I think I want to be physically connected with you.
He wants Burger Pants to know that he has no romantic implications towards Chris, and the one that he really wants to fuck is Burger Pants, and he says this as clearly as he possibly can.
And what? How do you even parse that thing at the end? Physical connection? As in not spiritual. I want to be connected with you, but only in person. Please don't contact me after this life kind of deal. Or was it like actually Az is hitting on him in the worst way possible?
It takes Burger Pants a little while to process exactly what Azriel means by this. At first he takes this in like the worst possible way, that Azriel is somehow trying to distance himself from him. But then the realization kind of dawns on him that this actually might be a romantically inclined thing that he said.
What would ramp up to that? They had no chemistry, romantically anyway. Can't have romantic chemistry with a person you flunked out of 101, right?
And for him, chemistry just pretty much means how hot you are. Azriel is really hot. Burger Pants feels like Azriel is extremely way out of his league, and he can't possibly process how a relationship would work between them because of this divide. And Burger Pants having these thoughts makes Azriel more hopeful that something could possibly work out between them, because it's not like Burger Pants is disgusted by this idea. Burger Pants just feels like he's unworthy, so that's when Azriel decides to take his other hand and see how he'll react to this.
That's two hands down. Does that mean Burger Pants is disarmed? He looked nervously at Azriel, the person desperately awaiting a response, and he managed to wheeze out,
You couldn't possibly mean it that way, right?
So yeah, Burger Pants feels cornered, he feels a little bit trapped, but even amidst all this, even though he feels threatened, even though he feels like Azriel has put him in this sticky situation, he sees the look on Azriel's face, that hopeful look, and he can't possibly ignore him, so he just tries to reconfirm it the best way that he can, because Burger Pants really does have problems talking about relationships directly. And that's something that carries through even past this fanfic into Azriel's story, where Burger Pants, regardless of what he's done and how far that they've gone, still has problems directly saying things involving their relationship.
Any person would be lucky to have him, except what do you do when you're not even in the same league as him, not even in the same sport as him? Didn't take an extracurricular at school at all, no game whatsoever.
And that's when Burger Pants has these thoughts about how lucky anybody would be to have Azriel, and that he couldn't possibly cut in line before everyone else and steal Azriel for himself. And then he kind of thinks about it. All the girls that Burger Pants has interest in, it's everyone in his friend group. It's everybody who's interested in Azriel. That's the relationship he has to these girls, is that they like Azriel and he likes Azriel. And he's trying to think about that. If he really, likes these people for who they are, or he just likes them because of their connection to Azriel.
I find your teeth to be particularly beautiful. They're perfectly straight and flat. I can't imagine how it would feel if they were to sink into my neck.
Azriel makes one more push, tries to make it as clear as possible. He definitely wants a physical relationship with Burger Pants. He wants Burger Pants to bite him with his beautiful, perfectly flat, blunt teeth. This is the guy that Azriel has been crushing on for years, and he doesn't want to ruin the relationship that they have. So the first thing that Azriel, of course, proposes isn't for them to start out dating. He immediately goes for the physical side, because he knows that is the thing, or he thinks that is the thing that Burger Pants would be the most receptive to. Burger Pants is a physically charged person, so of course he would be a lot more receptive to starting some physical activities than he would be suddenly jumping into a relationship. But of course, Azriel is wrong about this. One of the qualms Burger Pants has about this is if Azriel is just asking for a fling that has no feelings attached, or that if Azriel actually likes him, if Azriel actually feels like Burger Pants is an important person in his life. Burger Pants definitely wants to be somebody important to Azriel, but he's not quite sure if he wants to try getting in this relationship and possibly messing up what they already have.
How did this situation get even more batshit insane? Azzy, the physical relationship you're trying to push me toward is simply a convenient way for you to satisfy your kink? Do you even think about your words just now?
He feels really pressured into giving Azriel an answer right here, right now, as if what they do is going to happen right here, right now, and Burger Pants cannot possibly entertain this idea right now. He wants nothing more than to eat something and go to sleep right now. He is so exhausted. He cannot handle this.
I'm still digesting the stuff from earlier. I don't even know what issue to juggle first. That's how confused I am. It's all too much at once. Azzy, I can't.
Before Burger Pants could properly reject, Azriel made a move. Burger Pants flinched, thinking that perhaps Az was going to bite him first.
He does the only thing that he really feels like he can do right now, and tries to give Azriel another soft rejection. But before he can even do that, Azriel can kind of tell where this track of thoughts of Burger Pants is leading. It's leading to yet another soft rejection, and Azriel cannot possibly take this, especially after he was just so hopeful, and things looked like they were finally going to work out in his favor. Azriel pushed too far, and it's starting to hurt the relationship that they already have. That, in addition to the very crazy concoction that Azriel had taken earlier, in addition to him jumping on the freaking couch earlier, this just sparks his nerves. This overwhelms him so much that he just vomits right there and then. Burger Pants kind of feels the motions that Azriel's making and thinks that Azriel might be trying to make a move on him. And his first thought is how strange the obsession Azriel has with teeth is, and he thinks that Azriel is going to bite him, not even realizing he does not realize this. For the whole duration that Burger Pants is in this world, Burger Pants does not realize that Azriel is only into being the one bitten, not being the one who does the biting. But since biting is on the table, this is how Burger Pants thinks that it works. Being bitten and biting is pretty much the same thing. It scratches the same itch. Like, at this point, he's not even really that scared of Azriel kissing him. The thing he is most scared of is Azriel biting him.
How could he begin to recount his story? Azriel Dreamer came to my shitty house, and he got so plastered he puked on my pants. That's why they call me Puke Pants.
The first worry he has, whenever he realizes that Azriel has thrown up, is if it had gotten on his pants. Is if it was going to humiliate him once more. He thinks that this whole situation would be a humiliation on himself, and not something embarrassing that Azriel had done.
Who said romance is dead? They were holding hands with the scenic puke side seats. Breathtaking, literally. The smell alone made him want to gag. Maybe they could make a game out of taking turns, seeing whose aim was more accurate. No Burger Pants, don't do that. That's also an advanced fetish, probably.
Burger Pants is just thinking over about how ridiculous this situation is. And honestly, this is one of my favorite paragraphs. I absolutely loved writing it. Because I was thinking about this ridiculous situation, and how do you make it even more ridiculous than it already is? So I have these thoughts about how Azriel was pretty much clinging onto Burger Pants as he was throwing up, and of course they had their hands pretty much interlocked, so it's like they're hugging. So this kind of seems like a couple's activity. Burger Pants is extremely sensitive to smells, so this is very uncomfortable for him, and he almost feels like throwing up. And then the mental image of comparing this to a carnival, I pretty much laughed myself to sleep whenever I thought of that. I loved this so much. And no, I was not thinking of it in that way. I was not thinking of this being a fetish. I was just thinking of this being gross out humor, because that's how my little immature pea brain works. Body fluids equal funny.
Everything was going to be alright. Except for the cheap rental carpet. Or perhaps this too could add property value. A memorial site for where Azriel Dreamer first thought about leaving for bigger, better things.
Even Azriel's puke is a monument to his greatness. That's along the lines of thinking that Burger Pants has. Not, ew, this is super disgusting, I'm going to have to clean this up off my carpet.
Okay, bud, time to get up. We're gonna have to get you over the sink or something.
But then he kind of snaps out of it and realizes that Azriel just threw up, meaning he's not doing so hot. So he tries to take care of Azriel first and foremost.
Azriel, meanwhile, had no qualms leaning on him for support. That's right, Az always had been a touchy-feely kind of guy, and this wasn't their first rodeo. That is to say, he'd had to wrangle Azriel and nurse him back to health a few times in the past. This shouldn't really be any different. Nothing changed. Right, it's not like Azriel changed. After everything is said and done, it really wasn't all that shocking. Well, for the most part. The issue was that he was really hung up on how much of this night he should be able to take to heart and what he had to chalk up to incoherent ramblings. Perhaps it was a prank, who knew?
So he helps Azriel up, and kind of thinks about the implications of their relationship and what relationship Azriel wants to have with him. If he would be leading Azriel on by touching him, and in what ways he should touch him. But then he realizes that they've been this way for a long time. They've always been very close. So it's kind of stupid for him to be standoffish now. Like, this is the same person. He just put this new offer on the table. Azriel is so frail and ill and weak right now that it's not like Azriel could do very much even if he wanted to. His friend's wellness comes first and foremost. And after that, Burger Pants' needs of finally needing rest and needing something to eat.
After that task was done, he went back to the kitchen with a clean towel and threw it Azriel's way. Az stood over the sink with his hands in his face, splashing himself with cold water and graciously accepting the offering. Burger Pants slid out of his chair with his foot and helped Azriel sit down, gently patting his shoulder. It was a rough night for both of them. It's not like he could just kick his friend out when he was down. Maybe he should stay over after all.
So he comes back in to check on Azriel, see how Azriel is doing, and he throws this towel at Azriel, which I wanted to kind of be a metaphor for Burger Pants throwing in the towel and pretty much realizing that no matter what, Azriel is important to him. That Azriel is an exception, that he's willing to do things for Azriel that he wouldn't do for anyone else. And that's just the kind of relationship that they have. Whatever happened tonight shouldn't really change how they interact in the future. Burger Pants extends the olive branch, offers to have Azriel stay the night. Despite everything that has happened previously, he still trusts Azriel and still wants to make sure that Azriel is taken care of.
I didn't mean for everything to happen like this tonight.
Which Azriel is grateful for, and he starts trying to apologize, but he can't really find the right words, because he kind of thinks back on what he really intended to come here to do, and he feels a little bit of guilt. Now Azriel has definitely changed his plans. He wants to further pursue Burger Pants. He's still a little bit hopeful, so he's very curious to see how things are going to go from now on. If he could possibly start to kindle a real relationship with Burger Pants. And that's when he decides to test the waters out. Decides to see just how much Burger Pants is willing to still care for him. Which is why he asks for a glass of water.
And it's not like he wasn't willing to indulge him a bit. Just a little bit more, but not a little bite. Burger Pants wanted the facepalm. Tonight really was the worst.
And Burger Pants thinks about this, about how Azriel easily could have taken care of this for himself, but he specifically chose to ask Burger Pants for this, and Burger Pants is suspicious, but he decides to do it anyway. And instead of trying to get Azriel like a bottle of water or anything, he gets a glass from the cabinet and fills it up with tap water as if to show Azriel that regardless of everything, he's still going to get the tap water, and it was stupid of him to ask him for this. This wasn't the whole point of the exercise. The point of the exercise was to see just how much Burger Pants was willing to go out on a limb for him, and even Burger Pants thinks about this. Even if Azriel wanted to be spoiled, it didn't take much effort, so he was already willing to do it. And Burger Pants kind of thinks, what's really the difference in me spoiling him like this and spoiling him in the way that he just asked to be spoiled? But of course he doesn't want to have these thoughts right now. He doesn't want to think about it. He doesn't want to think about anything. So he just hands this glass of water to Azriel, a little bit frustrated by the situation. And these thoughts and this action is completely endearing to Azriel. Azriel couldn't be happier that despite everything, despite every single thing that has happened tonight, despite all of Burger Pants' feelings and worries and the way that he was scared and threatened and mistrusting, their relationship hadn't changed. And despite all of the crazy things that Azriel had told him, it's not like he ran away. It's not like he dismissed him. He listened to what Azriel had to say, and in the back of his mind, he's not even sure what to process as truth and what not to process as truth, but he was still giving Azriel the benefit of the doubt. So, no matter how much Azriel tried to push him tonight, there still was no breaking point. If anything, they had gotten a lot closer tonight than they had been previously that day. That's an extremely interesting thought, that Burger Pants was willing to put up with this much, that Burger Pants still cared for him, was still willing to care for him, and was willing to put up with his bullshit. And this just causes Azriel to like Burger Pants even more. He gets even more interested in the idea of this guy. So once again, Azriel thinks about changing his tactics, changing his plans, and seeing what happens from there.
However, his friend's expression didn't change much. If anything, he looked to be in a better mood. Slightly annoyed, Burger Pants thrust a lukewarm cup toward Az's outstretched hands.
Burger Pants can kind of tell Azriel's mood, and he's not very happy about this. Azriel had just put him through the ringer, put him through so much crap, and at the end of the day, none of this really seemed to affect Azriel. So Burger Pants gets a little bit frustrated and pushes this glass on him and tries to get Azriel to apologize again. Even though Azriel previously apologized, he's trying to get validation, trying to get reassurance that Azriel know he messed up.
Go on and finish what you were saying. You're mortified, right? Regretful? Sorry, perchance?
Thirsty.
But of course Azriel doesn't back down, of course not. Azriel pretty much tells him, in that Azriel doublespeak way, that the only reason why he asked him for this glass of water, the only thing he was really feeling out of this affair, was thirsty, and not just from a physical needs standpoint. His desire to have Burger Pants as his own has only gotten stronger throughout the course of this night. And that's where we leave off Chapter 2, my baby, my favorite chapter. I am so grateful for anybody who decided to watch these streams, who decided to read these stories, anybody who decided to listen to this video, hear my commentary on it. Thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate this. This was such a crazy experience for me that I didn't want to be the only one who experienced it. I didn't want to be the only one who was laughing at the ring toss and Azriel jumping on the couch and all the crazy misunderstandings. I didn't want to be the only one in the world who knew about this crazy thing that I had made. I finally have that validation. I finally have people who are willing to read this thing and willing to talk about it and have all kinds of things to say about it. And I am so grateful for the horrified reactions, and I'm so thankful for the disgusted reactions, and I'm so grateful for those people who really found meaning in this, and who actually like the writing, or actually likes the way that I portrayed this character or that character. I really appreciate everyone who gave this stupid little thing that I did a chance. It really means the world to me. Thank you so much. And with that, I hope there's a lot more Azzypants in the future, because I'm actually really excited about everybody else's content revolving these two. I'm kind of invested in these characters now. Like, I'm really invested in the interactions between Azriel and Burger Pants / Pizza Pants. And I can't wait to see what the future holds. Thank you everybody who listened, who tuned into this, and have a good night, everyone.